podcasts. Until the next time, bye for now.
From the BBC, that was The Interview. I'm Saroja Coelho. CBC News is next.
Good morning, Manitoba, and hello there, Winnipeg. I'm Marcy Marcusa, and you are listening to Information Radio, live on 89.3 FM, 990 AM, on the app and on YouTube on this Friday morning. Thanks for joining us. Mix of sun and cloud, a high of 28 degrees in Winnipeg today. Brandon, you're looking for a 30% chance of showers this afternoon, and your high is going to be right around 25. Sticky and hot for you today. And in Thompson, good morning, everyone. Sunny and a high of 22. The morning show is on until 8:37 a.m., and I'm not here alone. Let's say good morning to the team. Hello, Sierra Sanders. Sierra is show directing this morning and will also be on the air covering your commute. Good morning to Mr. Abby Adeyemi behind our controls, our senior tech on the show. And Abby covers weather on the program, so we'll hear him after 6. And then good morning to Travis Peterson, who's making a special one-day appearance today as our director and producer of our YouTube stream. So you can watch us live there, and please do. If you do, you will see that Matt Humphrey has joined me in studio. He's here with your day's headlines. Good morning.
Good morning. Thousands of wildfire evacuees are set to return to their homes in northwestern Manitoba in the coming days as Lynn Lake lifts its evacuation order and Flin Flon moves to rescind its own. The Flin Flon deputy mayor says re-entry is expected to be allowed on Wednesday, meaning more than 5,000 people who escaped wildfire or just over 3 weeks ago can go home. Meanwhile, people from Lynn Lake can go home as of 8 this morning. People are being warned supplies will be limited in the municipalities, so it's a good idea to bring some groceries with you if you can. We'll hear more after World Report.
I suspect grocery stores in Winnipeg and Costco's and box stores and the like are going to be packed today with people getting ready.
Even more packed.
Yeah, exactly. Even more. Nice, though, for people that they're getting some good news, Matt. Thanks for bringing it.
Back soon.
Tomorrow is a National Indigenous Peoples Day in this country. And today, actually, because we don't have a morning show tomorrow, Nadia Kidwai, of course, has her show, but we're not on the air with InfoRad. We are going to celebrate today. So we have some fantastic things coming up, including a panel of young people to talk about what the day will mean to them. They are Indigenous youth change makers in our province, and believe me, you want to hear what they have to say. That's between 7:30 and 8 o'clock. Also, to some other things. To start the show this morning, we're going to talk to the Forks. They're preparing to kick off 11 days of programming between tomorrow and Canada Day, so we're going to hear all about what you can take part in. Got a great show ahead. Stay with us. World Reports first.
On cue.
I'm Talia Schlanger, sitting in for Tom Power. For over 50 years, Tantu Cardinal has brought powerful Indigenous stories to life, from films like Dances with Wolves to Killers of the Flower Moon. She joins us to reflect on her remarkable career.
I have a whole new world in front of me, and I'm only sensing it.
Cue, this morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm Deanna Sumanak-Johnson. British and European foreign ministers hope to meet with their Iranian counterpart today in Geneva. The talks are aimed at finding a diplomatic solution to the deadly Iran-Israel conflict. The meeting comes a day after Donald Trump appeared willing to give diplomacy another chance. The U.S. president says he'll make a decision within 2 weeks whether to intervene militarily. CBC correspondent Chris Brown has more from Jerusalem.
Despite Israel's multi-layered anti-missile shield, ballistic rockets fired by Iran continued to get through. Only one was launched overnight, but it hit in Beersheba, destroying several buildings, the second time in as many days a southern Israeli city was targeted. Speaking on Israeli television, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said U.S. President Donald Trump will do what is good for the United States, and he will do what is good for Israel, implying Israel's attacks on Iran's nuclear and military facilities will not let up while Trump ponders his next moves. Netanyahu has continued to hint he hopes Iranians will help him meet his war aims by overthrowing their Islamic leaders, although there's no evidence any kind of popular uprising is imminent in Iran. Former Mossad official and analyst Seema Shine says it's likely this war may only end with some kind of U.S. involvement, either by joining in the attacks or waiting until both sides get fatigued.
At the end of the day, probably it will be the U.S. that will make the change and make both sides stop.
Iran has said it will not enter any negotiations over the future of its nuclear program as long as Israel keeps attacking, keeping expectations for today's talks with European leaders and Iran in Geneva low. Chris Brown, CBC News, Jerusalem.
Searchers in Alberta will be out at first light looking for survivors of a deadly rock slide. One hiker was killed and at least 3 others injured when a rock face gave way yesterday in Banff National Park. Josh McLean reports.
At the base of Bow Glacier Falls, a plume of dust rises up into the sky. Caught on video moments after a rock cliff face broke off and collapsed on a group of hikers. The falls, about 30 minutes north of Lake Louise, are a popular spot for day hikes. Nicholas Brundell was nearby when it happened.
We had heard 2 rock falls before, so we decided to kind of keep a little bit lower down, a place we thought would be safe because they were kind of small rock falls. And then all of a sudden we heard this much louder noise, and I turned around and I see basically a whole shelf of a mountain come loose.
Parks Canada says the first report of the rockfall came in the early afternoon. Its visitor safety teams responded along with the RCMP. They found 1 person dead at the scene, 2 more were airlifted to hospital, and a 3rd was taken by ground ambulance. The search continues today with dogs and drones. Josh McLean, CBC News, Lake Louise, Alberta.
The Yukon Liberal Party has a new leader this morning, and with that, a new premier. The vote was necessary after Ranj Pillay announced he was stepping down. This was the first contested leadership race for the party in 2 decades, and it came down to just a handful of votes. The CBC's George Moratis reports.
The evening began with excitement. The Yukon Liberal Party finally with a choice for leader, the first contested race in 20 years. Vying for the job, Mike Pemberton, a longtime Yukon businessman, and Doris Bill, former chief of the Kwanlin Dun First Nation. And then 90 minutes after voting closed, the results.
Ballots for Doris Bill, 429. Ballots for Mike Pemberton, 442.
Just 13 votes separating the 2 candidates.
This is the honor of my life.
For Bill, disappointment. She was looking to become the first First Nations premier of the Yukon. Bill would have also been the first born and raised Yukoner to serve as premier.
It's a disappointing loss. I mean, it was so close. It is what it is. I mean, we're, at this point, I'm just very tired.
Bill, who attended residential school, says she's not sure at this point if she will run for the Liberals in the next general election. Right now, she's just processing what might have been.
Maybe someday, this territory will be ready for an Indigenous person in the Premier's office.
After a swearing-in ceremony, Pemberton will serve as Premier until at least the next general election. That has to take place no later than November 3rd. Another fact about Yukon's new Premier, he's the 3rd Premier in a row from Nova Scotia. George Moratis, CBC News, Whitehorse.
Today marks Dr. Theresa Tam's last day as Canada's Chief Public Health Officer. Dr. Tam has spent 8 years in the role, and she became, of course, a household name during the COVID-19 pandemic. As she leaves the post, she says she's concerned about the resurgence of another virus, measles. She says immunization can stop the virus, but there's an urgent need for a national vaccine registry.
It's not a technological issue as much as it is a need to work across the jurisdictional context. There's in fact quite a lot of work underway right now to develop those agreements with the provinces as well as the more technical aspects of this. But it will be so much easier for public health and for health providers and the parents. That's the most important things, that you will know whether your kids got the vaccine.
And you can hear more of Dr. Theresa Tam's interview with Dr. Brian Goldman on White Coat Black Art. That will be available later today on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts, or tomorrow on CBC Radio 1. An Ontario First Nation is suing the provincial government for failing to consult on a project in the world's largest salt mine. Saugeen Ojibwe Nation alleges the Ontario government has reaped the mine's benefits for decades and now owes the Saugeen royalties. But as Colin Butler reports, this case is about more than just salt.
At the heart of this lawsuit, salt, sand, and stone, resources that have cleared Ontario's winter snow and fed its urban growth. The roads we drive, the bridges we cross, the towers reshaping Ontario's city skylines. But the Saugeen claim that growth has come at a cost. Destroyed habitat, disturbed burial grounds, forests stripped of vital medicine, and a deepening cultural wound.
Every time a footprint happens in our territory, we lose access to all of that.
Greg Nadjawan is chief of the Chippewas of the Nawash.
We basically don't receive any kind of a fair payment for the extraction of resources in our homeland.
It's not just a lawsuit. It's part of a larger clash over fast-track development. Bill 5 in Queen's Park, Bill C5 in Ottawa. Critics say they weaken environmental safeguards and silence Indigenous voices.
And this is the frustrating part.
Randall Coggy is an Indigenous lawyer and former Saugeen chief.
You seem to have some momentum. You seem to be running, and then someone changes the rules of the game, or they shift the goalposts. And what is Ontario and Canada? They're shifting the goalposts.
The province says it won't comment on a case currently before the courts. The lawsuit seeks $167 million in damages and unpaid salt royalties. But for the Saugeen, like all First Nations, it's about more than money. It's about respect and the right to be heard before the digging begins. Colin Butler, CBC News, Toronto.
And finally, on this World Refugee Day, the European Union is reevaluating its migration policies. 2015 and 2016 marked a turning point in the migrant crisis. In those years, more than 2 million refugees and asylum seekers reached Europe's borders. And today, there's still debate about whether they should stay. William Denslow reports from Brussels.
Habe ich das gut hingekriegt? Aus Afghanistan. Genau. Herzlich willkommen. Vielen Dank.
Khushal Asafi was a TV moderator in his native Afghanistan before the Taliban takeover in 2021. With assistance from the German government, he was able to relocate to Europe. Now, a teacher and freelance journalist in the city of Bonn, he says he feels a responsibility to assimilate.
You have to be at least ready to work, to integrate in society, and to be a good role model for other people.
The issue of integration has been used by right-wing groups across Europe to garner support for their anti-immigration policies. And a number of European capitals have hardened their position on migration. Executive Vice President Henna Virkkunen says the European Commission is now adapting its asylum rules.
The EU return policy is failing. Return rate remains very low at around 20%. Persons ordered to leave often escape the authorities.
Some EU member states want changes to how human rights laws are interpreted to make it easier to deport people who migrate to Europe through irregular channels. United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights Volker Turk says he's concerned.
I urge EU countries to put human rights at the centre of new regulations on returns and migration governance more generally.
Rights groups say the EU should shift focus towards effective integration to help people rebuild their lives. William Denslow for CBC News, Brussels.
And that's the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm Deanna Sumanak-Johnson. This is CBC News. Right on time. Okay.
Oh, you're on CBC. Live from downtown Winnipeg, 89.3 FM, 990 AM on that app and on YouTube. We have a great show today. And I don't say that each and every day. It's true. So we have a lot coming up. First of all, we have a lot for you. If you wanted something to do over the next 11 days, we got you covered. We're going to start by talking to the Forks about what their plans are. They're going to start on National Indigenous Peoples Day, which is tomorrow, with different events, and all run through Canada Day with all kinds of different programming and special things you can do. So we're going to hear all about that. Also, this hour on the program, coming up at 10 to 7, you've heard part of this on World Report. This spring does mark the 10-year anniversary of the release to the calls of action from the TRC, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Now, we all remember that happened here in Winnipeg. Justice Maurice Sinclair standing and delivering those 94 calls. Where are we at 10 years later, and how far do we need to go? And then later, we have an inspiring panel of young Indigenous Manitobans who are going to lead the way. So we'll talk to them in hour 2. Told you it was a good show. All right, let's get into what's happening in the news headlines. Matt Humphrey is joining us live in studio to tell us what's making news today. And I believe there's good news in this, too.
There is good news. Welcome news for wildfire evacuees from northern Manitoba. Lynn Lake residents will be able to go home as of 8 this morning as the municipality lifts its evacuation order. Roughly 600 people will be heading back. Meanwhile, in Flin Flon, the deputy mayor says the more than 5,000 people who evacuated from there will likely get to go home on Wednesday. We'll hear more. And also in the news, people in Winnipeg's West End fear their neighborhood is becoming a financial desert, as one of the last banks in the area is set to close in the coming weeks. At the bottom of the hour, we'll hear from our reporter covering the story.
All right. Thanks very much, Matt.
Back soon.
Let's get into this forecast here. Abby Adiemi, good morning.
Good morning, Marcy. The south will be warm and humid today. We're going to see temperatures close to 28 degrees, while the north is cooler with some showers. Plus, guess what, Marcy? Summer officially begins tonight at 9:42 p.m. So it's goodbye spring, hello summer. Let those flowers now bloom. Winnipeg right now, 16 degrees. We're seeing cloudy skies that should clear. We're expecting a warm mix of sunny conditions and clouds today. Highs near 28, though with the humidity, it's going to feel really close to that 30 degrees. And across the southern region, the Westmount, the Parkland, the Interlake region, we're seeing 15 to 17 degrees right now. But up north, it's kind of cooler with 5 to 10 degrees. Winnipeg, 16, warming to 28.
You know, I'm feeling good about summer. I know that we've had a terrible wildfire start and a lot of people are nervous. And yes, it could be, we have to pay attention this summer closely to what might develop. But let's remember last year was a historic year for wildfires all across Canada, but not here in Manitoba.
True.
So maybe we'll escape it. Maybe we've had the worst of it early in the season, we can hope.
The worst is past.
Yeah, I hope so. Let's get into what's going on in the morning commute and tee up where you should call if you see something that develops. Sierra Sanders has popped in now.
Good morning. I'm just getting this Friday commute started. So not too much to report on right now, but we are on until 8:37, so lots of time to give me a call. So if there's anything slowing you down out there, you can give me a call on the CBC commuter line, 204-788-3093.
Well, as I mentioned, we're kicking things off by talking about what's going on at the Forks for the next, 11 days. National Indigenous Peoples Day in Canada is tomorrow, but we're also thinking about a significant anniversary. 10 years ago this spring in Winnipeg, as I mentioned, we're going to be looking at what happened with the release to calls for action in the TRC. But the Forks actually is starting with National Indigenous Peoples Day with a whole bunch of learning tomorrow. They have a whole bunch of fun things for you to do with the family on National Indigenous Peoples Day. And then leading up to and including Canada Day, there's all these free things for you to do. They're calling it Many Nations, One Heartbeat. Tinika Bauskai-Leoma is Communications and Marketing Advisor with the Forks, and she gets the early bird prize for being in studio. Good morning.
Good morning.
So tomorrow, first of all, why don't we start there? What's going on for the day?
Yeah, so we have a full day of programming at the Forks from 9 till 6. There's something for everybody. Free, family-friendly programming, a little bit of everything.
So music, activities, interactive stuff, because you guys always do such a good job of having, if you want to sit back and be, entertained or learn or listen, but if you want to engage.
Exactly. We have all of that. So we're starting in the morning with a pipe and water ceremony that's open to everyone. There's also free bannock breakfast for all. And then if you wanted to learn about skateboarding, there's demonstrations at the Plaza Skate Park all day. There's a handmade market so you can shop Indigenous makers, as well as sit back and listen, enjoy to fiddlers, dancers, some singers. There's just entertainment throughout the day, as well as you can go and learn. There's some folks talking about Indigenous law as well. Again, something for everyone, 9 to 6 all day tomorrow.
I love that. Obviously, in Manitoba, we have the largest urban Indigenous population here in Winnipeg, and then we have such a diversity of culture and language to explore. So what time's the bannock breakfast?
That's from 9 to 11,
Okay.
and that's in the market.
So the rest of the programming then weekend leading up to July 1st, what's the thinking about sort of making this, a big block to kick off the summer?
Yeah, so we wanted to really bridge the two big events, celebrating Indigenous Peoples Day and then Canada Day on July 1st. And with this Many Nations, One Heartbeat, there's so many different folks that we can celebrate in our province as a whole. We have a lot of treaties that we can all learn a little bit more about. So this is a celebration of all the different nations, the people who made up and continue to make up our province as well. And so it's a great opportunity for free learning, free activities, something every single day that celebrates a different area and location, a treaty area of Manitoba.
I love that because, of course, being here in Winnipeg, I always talk about how we get permanent rights. And one of the ways is actually, we know we're on Treaty 1, but there's 5 different treaty lands here. And then in the north, there's some treaty lands that are affiliated where they're still fighting to have them honored. I was looking at the map this morning, actually, for my own reminder of everything here. So I love that. In terms of some of the other things that are coming up, you guys have some specific things planned for Canada Day for July 1st. What are you doing on that day?
Yeah, so it's another day of free family-friendly fun programming from 9 till 6 as well. And so some of your favorite Canada Day features are coming back. So the dance battles are back, again with the skateboard demonstrations and everything happening at the Plaza Skate Park. We'll have food trucks again like normal. And then it's more entertainment, singers, dancers, storytelling as well throughout the site. So there's 52 acres at the Forks and there's something happening in many different spots throughout.
Now, no fireworks. Why not?
Well, we haven't had fireworks for several years. They're not really in alignment with the Forks Target Zero and environmental practices. There's also lots of other places that do offer fireworks in the city. Plus, we're really close to a lot of residential properties, lots of pets. And we're across the river from the hospital. So we just made that decision several years ago. We're there for daytime programming. If you want to stay in, hang out on the patio, have some food and drink later, fabulous. But if you really need fireworks, you can find some in the city.
What's your advice for folks that have never been and might be wondering about, do I bring a lawn chair? How early do I need to come? Like, especially for the big days, tomorrow, National Indigenous Peoples Day, and then for Canada Day. What might they want to think about in terms of getting to the Forks and actually on site, what they might want to have with them?
Yeah, great question. Thanks for asking. So we definitely encourage for those really busy days that visitors leave the car at home. If there's a different way that you can come, utilize Winnipeg Transit, bike or boat, or walk on over to the Forks, that's ideal as well. Transit runs right past us, which is fantastic. It's going to be a very hot day tomorrow, especially with the humidity, and probably again the same on July 1. We have tons of free water fill stations, so please bring a water bottle that you can reuse throughout the day. Come early, plan to stay for the day. You can bring a picnic lunch if you want, or you can buy from the food trucks or the market tenants. Just bring a lawn chair or even maybe a blanket to sit on and enjoy. We have tons of loungers and patio chairs too, so just come ready for a great day.
You guys are doing a Cookum fashion show.
Yeah, that's going to be tomorrow. I'm looking forward to that.
Right?
Yeah.
I love this. How are the Cookums preparing for it? Have you engaged with any of them? You might not be directly involved with that one. But
I personally haven't, but I'm sure that they are super ready to go and super cute. I'm very much looking forard to that part of that.
And so I'm just looking at the list here and asking about a couple of things, but what is critter dipping?
Okay, so that's with Oak-Hat McMarsh, and that's happening tomorrow. So that's where they take the nets, they scoop them up, and then they look at and teach people about all the different critters that they have scooped up. Yeah, and then on Canada Day, we have Fort White Alive coming with some of their creatures as well.
Do you do any of these leg wrestling and the Inuit games and such? I've never done it. I've seen it myself, but I swore one time I'm going to get in there and I'm going to try.
Well, I think maybe this is our time because I can't say I've done it before, but I'm super happy to give it a try.
All right, you and me, we'll face each other in this. Anything last to remind people about it? Is it, I guess, in terms of where to find information, is it best to go to your website or your social pages?
Yeah, theforks.com. If you check out our events calendar, that's the best place to get all the information, in addition to our social media. And if you have any questions, you can always shoot us an email or DM us. And I'm the one on the receiving end, so I look forward to chatting with you.
Thanks so much, Tinica, for coming in today and starting off our Friday show in such a lovely way. Enjoy the 11 days at the Forks.
Thank you. Many heartbeats, one nation. Can't wait.
That is Tinica Bausco-Leoma. So she's a communications and marketing advisor with the Forks. You can check out theforks.com, as we mentioned, for more information about their Many Nations, One Heartbeat.
We carry a world of information in our pockets because we want to know. Breaking news that shapes our world. Staying on top of stories around the globe. And connected close to home. It's news you can trust. Delivered when you want and where you want. On Canada's News app. Now with CBC Radio 1, local and live. Download the CBC News app for free.
6:20 a.m. is the time right now on 89.3 FM, 990 a.m. on that app and on YouTube. It's 16 degrees, as Abby said, in the city of Winnipeg. It is 15 in Brandon, and it is Thompson is sunny and 10 degrees, mostly sunny and 10 degrees right now. Well, next on the program, you might have recalled this line. It was repeated by Premier Wabkanu. Actually, previous Premier had started to say this. They say that Manitoba is the, quote, Costco of critical minerals. So they're talking about that because, of course, we're positioned right now to see a lot of talk about how to extract minerals across this country. Manitoba is home to 30 of 34 minerals on Canada's critical minerals list, in fact. That was a stat from 2024. And it does include 6 that have been prioritized for their ability to drive economic growth and strengthen supply chains. But there are a lot of concerns about the way forward in this country, as Canada's mining industry is at this pivotal moment with the potential to miss out on billions in revenue because the demand for critical minerals is growing, but so does that pressure to mine, and it is unpopular for many reasons. The Canadian Climate Institution suggests fast-tracking mineral production without invading Indigenous rights is going to be a big task. So Research Director Marissa Beck joins us now via Zoom to talk all about this. Good morning.
Good morning, Marcy. Thanks for having me.
So as you heard, high interest here in Manitoba for this, but just to set the table, what is a critical mineral?
Sure. So our work is focusing exactly on those 6 priority critical minerals that you just mentioned in your intro, and those are copper, cobalt, graphite, lithium, nickel, and rare earth elements. And these minerals are considered particularly critical because they form the essential building blocks for many technologies, including many clean energy technologies. And that's why we as a Climate Institute are particularly interested in those. So you can think about solar panels, wind turbines, electric vehicles and their charging stations, and of course, batteries. So the demand around the world for these technologies and therefore for these minerals is heating up right now and projected to increase rapidly in the next years.
Now, I know that we have only one First Nation to fully own a mining company here in Manitoba. The chief there right now is wanting the provincial and federal governments to recognize his community's role in boosting critical mineral exploration because of the global race that you mentioned. But what's the best way to balance the need to do that and then also protect Indigenous rights and the environment?
Yeah, so what we've found in our analysis actually is that building strong partnerships with Indigenous communities around these projects and respecting or reducing the environmental risks for local communities that are associated with mining projects. These are not obstacles to project development or to fast development of these projects. No, they are the only way to do so. So we are seeing partnerships with Indigenous communities and strong environmental regulations as key success factors for Canada's critical mineral mining industry.
I know that when a lot of people hear sort of anything around environmental study or, safe practices, they automatically sort of, because of past experience in this country, link that with super long timelines. And that is not what the Prime Minister has said here. In fact, he wants things to get moving quickly. Are both achievable in your view to do a proper environmental studies and still, work at extracting these minerals?
Yeah, we're suggesting that, sure, there are some inefficiencies in these regulatory processes, and those should be cut. But speeding up processes cannot come at the cost of environmental protection and Indigenous rights. Otherwise, the risk is that these projects will be stuck in conflict, face a lot of opposition from local communities and Indigenous communities, and possibly end up in court. So the environmental standards and Indigenous participation are key here. There's no cutting corners around those. Sometimes you have to go slow to go fast.
So if there's no cutting corners around this, you're talking about, ways of is it techniques that you'll be leaning into because to make this safe and fast?
Yeah, so to develop these projects, safely and fast. So we're recommending For example, think about Indigenous communities. One of our policy recommendations is to provide more funding to Indigenous communities so that these communities are able to fully participate and meaningfully engage with these project proposals in the ways that they see fit. And so that provision of resources and funding can really help, for example, accelerating consultation processes by overcoming kind of resource bottlenecks here, while also strengthening Indigenous rights and enabling that meaningful participation. And yes, for environmental risks, we are recommending for provinces to strengthen the environmental regulations of minings, to reduce risks and liabilities for local communities. And that will also build the confidence of these communities in the project, and again, reduce the likelihood of local opposition, conflict, and litigation in court.
How can government policies attract more investment to the critical minerals sector, in your view?
Yeah, so that was an interesting thing that we found in our research. Despite the large, multi-billion economic opportunities for Canada's critical minerals right now, we're actually not seeing the investment flowing into the sector keep in pace with that opportunity. So our research identifies a number of risk factors that can prevent private capital from flowing into the sector. We are recommending a package of 4 policies that Canadian governments can introduce to attract more capital flow into the sector for Canada to realize these large economic opportunities. I already mentioned 2 of them. Funding for Indigenous communities to fully participate and strengthening environmental regulation. But another one might be for governments to step in and share some of the financial risks associated with these projects, again, to attract more private investment into the sector.
Where do we stand globally, Canada, when you look at mineral extraction, and where do you see us in the future?
Yeah, so I think around the world right now, there's a real effort among economies and governments to secure their supply of these essential resources. And we've just seen that earlier this week at the G7 talks that some collaborations are emerging globally around these resources. And Canada has a role to play here. There's a huge economic opportunity, and there's an opportunity to build and diversify new trade relationships around the world, for example, with European countries who have a large demand and growing demand for critical resources, critical minerals.
Thank you very much for walking us through everything that you've been researching, and also some of your thoughts on the way forward. We appreciate having you on with us.
Thank you so much.
That is Marissa Beck, who's been with us this morning live, Research Director at the Canadian Climate Institute. We did reach her this morning in Kingston. Now, just to fill out some of what we were talking about there on a local level here in Manitoba, together the mines that I mentioned here in Manitoba produce 7 critical minerals, and she mentioned them at the beginning. So copper, zinc, cobalt, nickel, potash, lithium, and cesium. And there's 45 companies that are exploring right now for 19 critical minerals in Manitoba. So if you want to read more about this, my colleague Austin Shabatakat did an excellent piece on this in the spring. So it's an article that dates back to March, but you can read more all about mining and minerals here in our province. Let's get to what's happening in traffic and on your Friday morning drive. We do have an issue out there. Northbound Kenaston past Grant, there's a stall right now blocking the median lane, so keep right to pass through there and give us a call if you need. Sierra's handling the commuter line, and that number is 788-3093. Pretty nice day in Winnipeg today, and then tomorrow, of course, National Indigenous Peoples Day. I'm mentioning it because if you want to call us about it and tell us what it means to you, 788-3205 is the number to call this morning, 788-3205. Well, coming up, we have business news. Christelle Ramlichan will be here, as always. And today she's talking about Prime Minister Mark Carney, talking about the new counter tariffs against the U.S. That is the plan. That is if the two countries don't reach a trade deal in 30 days. And remember, that's what Donald Trump, the U.S. president, was saying, that he would reach some kind of a deal in 30 days. So if that doesn't happen, what will those counter tariffs look like? Christelle will run through that. Also, Canada will not pause a digital services tax on big tech companies. So we're going to find out more about why. Christelle's got analysis. And then the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders are getting a 400% raise. So just a bit of a story there around that, which might speak to what they were making, or I should say not making before, right? Let's get to your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News.
At 6:30, we're at 16 degrees with partly cloudy skies over downtown Winnipeg. We have a slight sprinkling of rain. We're expecting hot and humid weather today. Good morning. I'm Matt Humphrey. Residents of Flin Flon are counting down the days. The city of around 5,000 people plans to lift its evacuation order next Wednesday morning. Flin Flon has been evacuated since late May because of wildfires. Deputy Mayor Alison Dallas Funk made the announcement last night on Facebook. Before people can return, she says the city needs to make sure critical services and essential businesses are running. Dallas Funk expects that to happen in the next few days.
We're really glad to give our community this information, but please advise that not everything will be up and running 100%, and we need to be patient about that and mindful and bring with you what you can.
Officials say crews are making steady progress on suppressing the two wildfires near Flin Flon. Also last night, hundreds of evacuees from Lynn Lake got the news they've been waiting for. The town, around 234 kilometers north of Flin Flon, is lifting its mandatory evacuation order at 8 o'clock this morning. That order was put in place on May 27th and led to the departure of some 600 people from the town and 280 more from nearby Marcel Colombe First Nation. Lynn Lake Mayor Brandon Delowich says provincial wildfire officials gave the go-ahead even though the fire continues to burn.
It's not that far out of town, but I believe they said roughly a kilometer, but all pretty much burnt forest already. So wildfire told us it's not 100%. There's still a forest fire, but they feel comfortable with people coming back to town.
Delowich says the town will still be on evacuation alert in case the situation changes. And anxious property owners are returning to Nopaming Provincial Park. They were forced to evacuate for a month due to fires. Martin Enns just got back to the cottage he built on Booster Lake, and he was pleasantly surprised to see no damage to his property.
I'm so grateful, for one thing, that it's still here and that the firefighters were able to stop the fire just a short distance from our block road. So a huge shout out to the firefighters and the water bombers that saved this place.
And says it was emotional to see all the burned out areas in and around the park. People in Winnipeg's West End say they're worried their neighborhood is becoming a financial desert. The Royal Bank branch at Sargent and Sherbrooke is closing July 10th. The CBC's Cameron McLean has the story.
Ella Hudson does all of her banking at the RBC branch at the corner of Sargent and Sherbrooke. With no car, she faces a long walk to get to the next nearest bank.
I know a lot of people that are elder and that, and like myself, but I could get around on a bike, but that's besides the point.
Cheryl Martins has lived in the Spence neighborhood for decades. She says many people in the area don't have vehicles or internet and rely on in-person banking services to meet their financial needs.
Once you start losing your services, it's sort of like a death knell to a community, I think.
Jessica Guimond is another West End resident. She says people in the neighborhood may resort to alternatives to get cash.
If they're taking their checks, they'll go to the nearest pawn shops.
The only other full-service bank in the West End is the TD branch on Notre Dame. The closest RBC branch is in the Manitoba Hydro building downtown, about a 20-minute walk away. The spokesperson for RBC says the West End branch is merging with the one on Ellis Avenue near Polo Park. They say the decision was made after considering how best to serve their clients, as more people use other banking methods like telephone, online, and mobile. Cameron McLean, CBC News, Winnipeg.
And finally, today marks Dr. Theresa Tam's last day as Canada's Chief Public Health Officer. She became a household name during the pandemic. Now she's concerned about the resurgence of measles. She says immunization can stop the spread, and there's an urgent need for a national vaccine registry.
It's not a technological issue as much as it is a need to work across the jurisdictional context. There's in fact quite a lot of work underway right now to develop those agreements with the provinces as well as the more technical aspects of this. But it will be so much easier for public health and for health providers and the parents. That's the most important things, that you will know whether your kids got the vaccine.
Dr. Tam talks about much more during her sit-down interview with Dr. Brian Goldman on White Coat, Black Art. You can listen later today on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts. And that is your CBC News from Winnipeg.
I don't know, Matt, if you kept anything, or Abby, who's about to come up here. We can bring Abby in on this. Did you guys keep anything sort of to remember the pandemic? I'm just, Teresa Tam obviously will be a mental memory, but I've got one of those Christmas decorations. They were cut out of wood, and they have Brent Roussen's face etched in them, our provincial medical officer of health, and it says on it, fundamentals. So remember when he was out and he was saying, it's about the fundamentals. So for weeks he was like, wash your hands, stay away from people, put a mask on. So I have a Christmas ornament that that goes on our tree. How about you, Matt?
In BC, ours was that we kept getting COVID lives in the inconsistencies. So if you don't forget to wash your hands or something, right?
Got
Be
it.
consistent with your...
Do you have a T-shirt that says that or something?
I know. I have a bandana that I wore as a mask.
Yeah.
Even before masks were cool. I was wearing it before everybody else. I was really freaked out at the beginning. So I tied a bandana around my face when I went to work. And I still have it.
Yeah, right? Abby, did you keep anything?
I think I had a few of those locally made masks that were made back then. I had like 5 of them because I know I was recycling, washing them and reusing them. And I had about 5 of them.
I also kept one of those as well. One of those local masks. All right, let's get into what's happening today. You won't need to mask up because now it's not about COVID, it's about air quality, but we don't have any warnings. What's the forecast looking like regionally?
Yeah, we're going to see warm and partly sunny conditions in the southern part of the province at the moment, and we're seeing cooler temperatures, also showers or some thunderstorms in the north. Winnipeg right now, you look outside, you're going to notice just a bit of speed and drizzle of, we notice a bit of drizzle out there in the city. 16 degrees right now, light drizzle outside. Those cloudy conditions will start to clear later. Then we'll see a mix of sun and clouds with warm temperatures climbing near 28 degrees. It's going to feel hotter with the humidity factored in. It will feel close to 34, 35 degrees. So prep for that. In the Pembina Valley region, similar conditions, partly cloudy at this time. Temperatures sitting around 16 degrees. Modern Winkler, Altoona, all the way down to the U.S. border. In for a mix of sun and clouds. Also, a slim chance of drizzle here and there in that part of the province with a risk of thunderstorms, high close to 28 also. In the Westman region right now in Brandon, 15 degrees. It's already sunny across the Westman region. The day will bring a mix of sun and clouds as you get into the afternoon. There's a slim chance of showers late the afternoon period also, and that will be coming with a risk of thunderstorms. Fog patches are clearing up. We spotted that in that area earlier. That should clear as you get into your day. We'll see highs heading to 25. In the Parkland region, right now in Dauphin and surrounding areas, Minnedosa, Riding Mountain, Russell, Roblin, we're seeing temperatures around 14 degrees. Already sunny there. The day will bring a mix of sun and clouds also. There's a slim chance of showers this morning for that part of the province. We saw fog patches earlier. That is also clearing. Your high will only get close to 25 degrees. In the Interlake region, Gimli, good morning. You are at 17 right now. Cloudy conditions we're seeing there. There's a good chance of showers with a risk of thunderstorms this morning. You might also notice some local smoke in that area still hanging in the air. Through the day, you'll see a mix of sun and clouds. Things will warm up to 24, though with the humidity factored in, it will feel close to 29 degrees for folks there. In the northern part of the province, we're tracking conditions in the powerful influence surrounding areas. Already sunny at this time. Some smoke still across the region. Right now, temperatures around 10 degrees. It's going to be bright and clear later with sun taking over the air. The sky will see temperatures around 23 degrees. Thompson is also mainly sunny at this time. 10 degrees there, warming up to 22. And further north in Churchill, we saw fog also in Churchill earlier, but that's cleared now. We have mostly cloudy conditions with temperature around 5 degrees. We'll see a mix of sun and clouds there. Also a slim chance of showers in the forecast, and a good, some thunderstorms might come with that. High near 12 degrees. So it's more like warmer south and cooler in the northern parts.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Time for the commute with Sierra Sanders.
Good morning. So there's a stall at northbound Kenniston just past Grant, and that stall is blocking the median lane. So keep right to pass there. And if there's anything out there that's slowing you down or something that you notice, you can give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That's 204-788-3093.
All right, thanks, Sierra.
Thank you.
20 minutes to 7 o'clock, and here's Crystal Ramlakan on Zoom to bring us business news today. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Marcy.
So you want to start here, I understand, with Prime Minister Mark Carney. He has said that Canada plans to impose these new counter tariffs against the U.S. if the two countries don't reach a trade deal in 30 days. So what are the details that we know here?
Yeah, so Prime Minister Carney has announced a new set of countermeasures, including adjusting existing counter tariffs on U.S. steel and aluminum products on July 21st if a deal can't be made by then. So he says the government will continue negotiations in good faith, but says Canada must also reinforce its strength and safeguard Canadian workers and businesses. He says the government would adjust tariffs to levels consistent with the progress that's been made at that point. But, Canadian steel producers, the Canadian Steel Producers Association and the United Steelworkers Union say that's not good enough. They say the plan falls short of what the industry needs at this challenging time. So Carney has been trying to lift these auto, steel, and aluminum tariffs and those so-called border emergency related tariffs as he attempts to establish a more stable trading and defense partnership with the U.S. So the U.S. imposed a 25% tariff on imports of steel and aluminum in March, and then Trump doubled it to 50%, an escalation that Canada did not immediately match. And a key meeting between negotiating teams is set for today.
Let's stay with news from the federal government. Canada also has said they will not pause a digital services tax on big tech companies. Why not? What have they said?
Yeah, so the federal finance minister says the tax will still go into effect on June 30th, despite pressure to pause it ahead of trade discussions with the U.S. So the tax will hit companies such as Amazon, Google, Meta, Uber, and Airbnb with a 3% levy on revenue from Canadian users. So it's going to be applied retroactively, leaving U.S. companies with a $2 billion bill due at the end of the month. And Canadian and U.S. business groups, organizations representing U.S. tech giants, and American members of Congress are calling for the tax to be eliminated or paused because, like we were talking about, it's set to take effect before that deadline for that new trade deal that we just talked about. Mm-hmm. Now, the Canadian Chamber of Commerce and other organizations have warned retaliatory measures in the form of a U.S. spending and tax bill could hit Canadians' pension funds and investments. But the Liberals first promised this tax back in the 2019 election. So it was delayed for years due to global efforts to establish a broader multinational digital taxation plan. And following significant delays on that process, Canada just went ahead with its own tax. But other countries have them too, including the United Kingdom and France.
Now, I mentioned this story right before the news, and the number is astronomical. The Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders are getting a 400% raise, which might say a lot about what they weren't making before.
Yeah, exactly. It really is a reminder of how little female athletes get paid in general. So, Marcy, I don't know, have you seen this Netflix docuseries about the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders?
I haven't, no.
Okay, so it's called America's Sweethearts, and it is very good. It's something that I've definitely binged. And when you watch it, you really see that these 36 women who make the squad are nothing less than pro athletes. So most come from studio-trained dance backgrounds. They endure grueling training programs, and their trademark kick line and jump split move is so punishing that some have even torn their hips and need surgery. So practices alone can be a 40-hour commitment per week, and that doesn't even include their promotional appearances. And until recently, they were reportedly not paid enough to support themselves. So if you watch the show, you can see that, some have second or even third jobs to make ends meet. And a former cheerleader told the New York Times she used to make just $15 per hour. And with the pay bump, it could be more like $75 per hour. So superstars like Caitlin Clark, Simone Biles, and Canadian swimmer Summer McIntosh, and these new professional hockey and soccer leagues have really attracted more eyeballs to female sports, but, paychecks have really not kept up pace.
What's going on in the market so far?
In Europe, stocks are rebounding. Germany is up, the UK is up, France is up. In Asia, markets are mixed. Japan is down, Shanghai is down, Hong Kong is up. Oil is up 88 cents to 76.02 US per barrel. Gold is down $20.91 to $3,350.59 US per ounce. And the dollar is up 0.03 of a cent to 73 cents US.
I don't know about you, Crystal Lee, but I'm reflecting this morning after that Dallas Cowboy cheerleader story that you were just sharing. You know, I had a moment in my career where a male colleague had said to me along the way, something about what he was paid, and he said, "Oh, well, you must be paid that as well," because we were doing a similar job at the time. And I said, "No, I've never been paid that. I've never actually negotiated that," and it was such a surprise to me. And I think that I'm saying this for all of the women listening, right? Lots of those moments. I can't imagine those. Can you imagine the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders who've been famous for years? Right?
Yes.
Some of the ones that would have been the cheerleaders back in the day and what they would have made. I mean, it would have been a pittance compared to what they should have been making.
Yeah, basically, people are saying it was basically a volunteer position, even though they are a huge part of the brand and bring in a lot of money and press and do a lot for the organization.
I got to watch that doc now. All right, take care. Have a good weekend.
Thanks, Marcy.
That is Crystal Lee Ramlichan live with our business news. Thanks for joining us here on CBC this morning. I am Marcy Marcusa. Thank you for being here with our whole team. Behind the glass today, Abby Adeyemi, Sarah Sanders, and Travis Peterson in. Matt Humphreys in our news department. He'll be back with next headlines before 7 o'clock. But some good news for the people of Flin Flon who are going to be allowed to be heading back to that city next week. And also for the people from Lynn Lake. You'll be able to start heading back today. So Matt's going to have some more information on the wildfire zones and those updates just before the top of the clock and on the news. If you want to read anything now, though, you can go to our website at cbc.ca/Manitoba. Well, William Prince in 2024 partnered with Nashville company R Vinyl to release a few tunes and re-record them. The performance was also captured on video by R Vinyl. You can check this out on his YouTube page. I've watched a few of these. They're really cool. We thought we'd play a bit of William Prince. This is Bloom on CBC in advance of National Indigenous Peoples Day tomorrow. This morning we're going to be playing a lot of our local fabulous Manitoba artists. Enjoy.
I get so tripped up in things that ain't. Guess that's how I justify my pain. Surely I could change my tune. Be better for me, thus better for you. The gears that run this carousel have rust, worn out from old passengers and such. Were we tall enough to take this ride? Let's look within and look outside. Now I can see you didn't need my flowers. You bloom stayed young while I've grown old. Thick as thieves, but in the end what mattered? There was plenty of silver, just not enough gold. Now the hardest part is the letting go. The hardest part is the letting go. Now you can shine, baby, shine, baby, shine. Rest your lungs for a little while. Most of all, let no one choose what's better for me and better for you, yeah. Now I can see you didn't need my flowers. You bloom stayed young while I've grown old. Thick as thieves, but in the end what mattered? There was plenty of silver, just not enough gold. Now the hardest
William Prince and a little bit of Bloom from the R Vinyl YouTube page. He's not doing a show upcoming in Manitoba anytime soon, but if you want to make a drive to Saskatoon, he's playing the Saskatchewan Jazz Festival on July 9th. Well, next on the show, I mentioned this earlier this hour, but tomorrow is National Indigenous Peoples Day in Canada, and we're also thinking about a significant anniversary, which is 10 years ago this spring in Winnipeg. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada released 94 calls to action delivered by late Justice Murray Sinclair, the goal to redress the legacy of residential schools and advance the process of Canadian reconciliation. Today, how are we doing on those calls? I spoke with Crystal Gale Fraser, an associate professor of history and Native studies over at the University of Alberta.
Bunguenzi, good morning.
So as I mentioned, 10 years ago, people in Manitoba remember this well. Justice Murray Sinclair from here, at the Forks, the lead up to all of this, the emotional testimony for all of the residential school survivors. What do you remember about that time, 10 years ago?
Yeah, so 2015 was just this unforgettable time where the work of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission was wrapping up. I had followed them for a number of years. They really traveled the country. They had several national events. They also talked to thousands of survivors. And in many ways, Canadians were learning about the residential school system and history, maybe some for the first time, maybe some had heard about it, but more in depth. And so it was this time of people who were on this educational journey. It was also a time of emotion and reflection for Indigenous communities. What did this mean for them? It was also a time where the 94 calls to action were published, when the TRC shared their final report, which is many volumes. And so personally, for me as a historian of residential schools, also as a Gwich'in, a northerner who lives on Treaty 6 and who have survivors in my own family, my mother and my grandmother, this was a time of, like I mentioned, reflection, but also a time of energy, a time of optimism that the TRC had set the course for truth and reconciliation in Canada. And what was that going to look like?
Now, when you look at it today, we have this CBC tracker, and as of this week, only 15 calls to action have been completed in the last 10 years. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little disheartening. I think if you would have asked me 10 years ago, I would have predicted a much higher number than 15. And I mean, there have been others who have tracked as well, scholars Ian Mosby and Eva Jewell with the Yellowhead Institute tracked also and gave up in 2023 because no progress was being made. And so it's incredibly difficult. Governments and large organizations are slow moving. But, on the other hand, do we have to be slow moving? For example, 4 years ago on May 27th, 2021, when the announcement from Kamloops was made that tragically they, estimated about 215 unmarked graves on the site of the former residential school there, the government was able to swiftly act and implement a few more of the 94 calls to action. And so one really has to question, is the political will there? Are governments, willing in this 10th year, are they willing to recommit to the project of truth and reconciliation? I'm not sure.
In Winnipeg, we have many conversations, of course, but we have the largest urban Indigenous population in all of Canada. So I know that we've engaged in this conversation, Winnipegger to Winnipegger. But how do you think the country's doing in terms of the bigger piece, the question of reconciliation?
Yeah, well, Winnipeg is a very special and unique place in that regard. There's always, I find whenever I visit, a lot of excitement and energy. You see it all around you. And of course, the University of Manitoba hosts the National Center for Truth and Reconciliation. But when we think more broadly across the country, I think there's still a lot of work to be done. I think back to the words of Murray Sinclair. You mentioned him, the former chair of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, where he cautioned that, maybe we went to reconciliation too quickly. Maybe we need to go back to truth. We need to pause there. We need to commit to it. We need to linger on truth, because the fact is that we still do not have an exhaustive understanding of what happened at residential schools. We do not have all of the knowledge of how the system worked, how it was connected to other institutions like Indian hospitals, orphanages, psychiatric institutions. So there's still a lot we don't know. And of course, we're trying to do all of this in the context of emerging residential school denialism. So this is all to say that refocusing on the truth, I think reconciliation will naturally follow. And we also know that, since 2015, there has been other reports that have been released. The final report for missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls, and then just last fall, the work of Kimberly Murray's office, the special interlocutor for missing residential school children and unmarked graves. I haven't seen really any level of government interact with Kimberly Murray's findings. So still a lot to do, but I think if we can recommit in this 10th anniversary and really focus on the truth part, only good can come from that.
Do you think, Crystal, that we're going to see all of the calls to action be completed in your lifetime?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, the fact that only 15 have happened over the previous 10 years would lead me to think probably not. But again, going back to Murray Sinclair, he also said that this is a multi-generational project, that it is going to take many, many decades. And so understanding that this is not a checklist, this is not something that can be done overnight. What we're actually looking for is a shift in society, in a shift in the way people think about their lives, about these lands that they live on and profit from. And so it's tricky and it's hard. Education will get us there. If we're still not there yet in 10 years or, within our lifetime, there is generations of very passionate and dedicated Indigenous youth who I know will keep this conversation going.
Thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks for your interest. It's my pleasure.
Crystal Gale Fraser, Associate Professor of History and Native Studies over at the University of Alberta. I reached out to Crystal on Treaty 6. Now, still ahead, speaking of that next generation she was mentioning, we have a special panel put together. National Indigenous Peoples Day was started to reflect on the contributions and cultures of First Nation, Inuit, and Métis. But what does it mean to Indigenous youth? So we have a panel of young Manitobans coming up in the next hour. Right now, let's get news headlines with Matt Humphrey.
Local officials in northern Manitoba say people will soon be allowed back into Flin Flon and Lynn Lake. Welcome news. Lynn Lake, the evacuation order there lifts in an hour's time. And Flin Flons is expected to lift this coming Wednesday. We'll hear more. And as Marcy's been talking about, tomorrow is National Indigenous Peoples Day. For a full list of events celebrating the day in Manitoba, head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right. Thanks, Matt.
Back soon.
Got a traffic issue northbound Kenaston past Grant. There was a stall blocking the median lane, so keep right to pass. We think that's still an issue, but you can update us just in case it's not. 788-3093. In the weather forecast, a cloudy 16 right now. Today's high is at 28 degrees. Mix of sun and cloud, and it's going to be sticky. Well, in addition to that panel that I mentioned, coming up in the next hour of the program, to a totally different story and a totally different mood. The people of Iran should be the ones who decide who they want to govern their future. That is the point of view of an Iranian Manitoban who has not been able to reach his family for days due to an internet blackout. So we're going to hear from him in the next hour about what the local community is concerned about at the individual level, and then, of course, collectively moving forward, how people are supporting each other as well. For the latest on what's happening between Israel and Iran, that's coming up next on World Report. It's 1 minute to 7 on your Friday morning. Stay with us here on CBC.
Today on The Current.
What if your wildest dance nights were actually in the afternoon? It's a thing. We'll hear why a growing number of people are pulling out their best dance moves before it gets dark, and why daytime dance parties are not just for older folk. That's coming up on The Current.
The Current with Matt Galloway. This morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm Deanna Sumanak-Johnson. A video released by Iran's state media claims to show a missile being launched toward Israel. The ongoing attacks come as European leaders push for a diplomatic solution to the conflict. Some European foreign ministers are meeting with their Iranian counterpart in Geneva today. It comes as U.S. President Donald Trump says he'll decide within 2 weeks whether to back Israel militarily. Anna Cunningham has more from London.
This is delicate diplomacy during a 2-week window with the Europeans mediating. The foreign ministers of Britain, France and Germany are meeting with the European Union's top diplomat, Kaja Kallas, in Geneva. They will then hold a joint meeting with the Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi. The Europeans expected to press Iran back to the negotiating table. Britain's Foreign Minister David Lammy met Thursday with the US Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Steve Witkoff, Trump's Middle East advisor, in Washington. Lammy stating on social media that the situation in the Middle East remains perilous, emphasising Iran must never have a nuclear weapon. The focus of talks has always been on the level of enrichment Iran is said to have reached.
No country has ever enriched to 60% without going on to build a nuclear weapon.
Says Elliot Abrams, a former special representative for Iran during President Trump's first term in office.
You don't need that kind of uranium, highly enriched, if all you want is nuclear power.
Israel wants to eliminate Tehran's ability to develop a nuclear weapon. Iran denies that is what it's doing. But Iran has its own red lines, saying Israeli attacks must stop for talks to restart, and it has always been opposed to any demands to completely demolish its nuclear program. This diplomatic pathway back to negotiations could still be fraught with difficulties. Anna Cunningham, CBC News, London.
As the Israel-Iran conflict enters the second week, the number of deaths continues to climb. Israeli officials say at least 24 civilians have been killed. In Iran, that number is believed to be in the hundreds. Nahaya Tazoush is in Florence, but following developments in Iran, Nahaya, what are you hearing about the number of Iranians killed or injured so far?
Deanna, it's been incredibly difficult to get a clear picture of the human toll. Israel insists it's targeting military infrastructure with precision strikes, but it has hit targets in densely populated areas. At the same time, inside Iran, there's no independent media, so the regime controls the information that comes out. One of the few credible sources outside the country, the Washington-based human rights activist group, estimates Israeli attacks have so far killed at least 657 people and wounded over 2,000. Now, they say 263 of those killed were civilians, 164 were military personnel, and for the rest, they are still investigating. But behind every number is a human life, and slowly some of those stories are beginning to surface. One name that's been shared widely online is Parnia Abbasi, a 23-year-old poet who friends describe as sharp-witted and full of life. She and her family were among the first killed in the strikes.
Nahayat, there's also growing concern over political prisoners in the country. What are you hearing about that?
Right. So while the regime is under military attack, it's also doubling down on repression at home, cracking down hard on any sign of dissent. So instead of offering shelter or aid, it cut off internet access nationwide for at least the last 36 hours. Security forces are carrying out arbitrary arrests of known dissidents and accusing others of spying for Israel. In several cases, political prisoners have also been transferred to undisclosed locations, raising urgent fears for their safety and, of course, the safety of the many political prisoners across the country. Many remember that in an effort to consolidate power in the late 1980s, the regime executed thousands of political prisoners to crush opposition. So now, as the Islamic Republic faces what some see as an existential threat, activists worry what it could do next.
Nahayat Tazouche in Florence, Italy. Nahayat, thank you so much for this.
Thank you, Deanna.
In Ottawa, the House is rising for the summer, and the Liberal government is marking the occasion by trying to pass its Major Projects Bill, or Bill C5. The CBC's Janice McGregor is covering this story for us. Let's talk about this bill. Janice, this is not the same bill the government originally put forward, is it?
No. As the House opens this morning, MPs are going to be debating the 23 amendments to C5 that passed at Transport Committee late Wednesday night. These changes are intended to respond to some of the criticisms, protests triggered by this legislation, curb its more draconian measures, improve its transparency. These changes are going to require the minister to ensure the active and meaningful participation of Indigenous people. This bill is expected to pass with the support of Conservatives, who yesterday were taking credit for closing loopholes to prevent the government from being able to circumvent other legislation under the guise of fast-tracking resource projects. The Prime Minister is going to have a chance to discuss the impact of these changes when he meets virtually today with premiers. That discussion also an opportunity to update First Ministers on negotiations with the Americans, as Minister Dominic LeBlanc returns to the table today with his Washington counterparts, trying to accelerate and land a deal inside this new 30-day time frame now set when Mark Carney talked to Donald Trump earlier this week at the G7 summit. Yesterday, the Prime Minister was acknowledging that it might not be possible to remove all the tariffs.
It's a negotiation. We start from a position which is clear in terms of the tremendous contribution of Canadian workers, Canadian companies.
This legislation the House is expected to approve today, central to Carney's strategy amid the ongoing uncertainty.
Thank you so much for that, Janice.
You're welcome.
That's the CBC's Janice McGregor reporting from Ottawa. Yukon is about to get a new premier. Mike Pemberton was elected leader of the governing Liberal Party Thursday night, beating former Kwanlin Dun First Nations Chief Doris Bill by 13 votes. Pemberton will replace current Premier Ranj Pillay, who isn't seeking re-election. The territory's next election has to happen on or before November 3rd. A deadly drug is becoming easier to smuggle into Canada. An investigation by CBC News found synthetic opioids known as nitazines are readily available online and are a favorite choice of criminals. The CBC's Eric Cito has more.
It can kill people, right? I just want you to make sure you know that.
That is a game. That is the game.
You're listening to a secretly recorded phone call with the criminal, one member of a global network of sellers trying to sell nitazines, a synthetic opioid that can be up to 40 times stronger than fentanyl. Nitazines have already killed hundreds of Canadians. Sellers told CBC how easy it is to smuggle it into Canada. What do you label it as?
Yeah, usually it can either be caffeine, detergent. Sometimes we can go with spices.
CBC's Visual Investigations Unit, with support from Bellingcat, a Netherlands-based investigative journalism group, discovered hundreds of online ads for these drugs. They were posted by users on well-known platforms like LinkedIn, X, Reddit, even obscure pet supply websites. Our investigation showed nitazines are shockingly easy to find. They're also an appealing product for criminals, according to Dan Anson, Director General of Intelligence and Investigations at the CBSA.
Obviously not a fan of organized crime groups, but they're going to look for more efficiencies, right? And if you have a more potent drug that can be cut and achieve the same effect with lower volumes, then that's appealing.
Nitazines have already been found in drug busts in Canada. 1 million fake oxycodone pills laced with nitazines were found in Quebec last year. LinkedIn and Reddit took down posts flagged by CBC. X did not respond to CBC's request for comment. Eric Cito, CBC News, Toronto.
And you can learn more about how CBC's Visual Investigation Unit went inside the global nitazine trade at cbc.ca and on YouTube. And finally, Still creepy all these years later. It's been 50 years since that music sent chills down millions of spines of moviegoers, and Jaws is still as popular as ever. Steven Spielberg's tale of a great white shark stalking the waters off a small island community broke records when it hit theaters. People lined up for hours just to see it. And it also linked sharks and summer forever. In Martha's Vineyard, where the plot took place, there is a summer-long blowout event to mark the anniversary beginning today. And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm Deanna Sumanak-Johnson. This is CBC News.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. Thanks for joining our team at the show this Friday. And thanks for being along with us on 89.3. You might also be on 990 AM on the app or watching on YouTube, and we hope you are because we've got a fantastic panel of young people that are going to be in this hour. National Indigenous Peoples Day is tomorrow. This morning, we're asking some Indigenous youth change makers about what tomorrow means to them, also about what motivates them to do their work in our community. So stay tuned for that. That's just before, just after 7:30. We're going to give the most of that back half hour. First, in this half hour of the show, to something completely different. Stressed, worried, and checking the news every 10 minutes, we're going to hear from an Iranian Manitoba who has not spoken to his family there for days because of the internet blackout. We're going to hear from him what it is like experiencing this conflict from here in Manitoba. Stay tuned. Matt Humphrey is in with other updates in the news this morning. Matt.
Good morning. Thousands of wildfire evacuees are set to return to their homes in northwestern Manitoba in the coming days. Lynn Lake is lifting its evacuation order, and Flin Flon is moving to rescind its order. The Flin Flon deputy mayor says re-entry is expected to be allowed on Wednesday, meaning more than 5,000 people who escaped wildfire just over 3 weeks ago can go home. Meanwhile, people from Lynn Lake can go home as of 8, so just under an hour from now. And people are being warned to bring supplies with them, as supplies are limited in the municipalities. So it's a good idea to bring some groceries if you can. We'll hear more at the bottom of the hour.
All right, thank you, Matt.
Back soon.
Abby, how's the weather today?
Right now, Winnipeg, 17 degrees, still mostly cloudy outside, but some clearing on the way. We're heading for a high of 28 this afternoon. The wind, the humidity is going to feel like 34, and it's going to be dry until later tonight when we have a bit of showers here and there and the risk of thunderstorm moving in. Across the southern region, we'll see temperatures also get close to 28 in most of the regions. Right now, the north is warming up close to 12 and 23 degrees.
Sierra, what's the commute doing this morning?
We're still seeing that stall at northbound Kenniston just past Grant, and that stall is blocking the median lane, so you'll have to keep right to pass there. Give me a call if you have an update on that stall there. But if there is anything slowing you down out there, you can give me a call on the CBC commuter line, 204-788-3093.
Well, as I mentioned, the war between Israel and Iran has people from those communities in Manitoba watching anxiously. As you've been hearing in our local news this week, Belle Charneski at the Jewish Heritage Centre of Western Canada says she spoke to a friend in Bat Yam, Israel, where an Iranian missile strike killed several people over the weekend.
It really hits home when it's someone that you know very well and when you've been there and seen the place. And it's very frightening.
Arian Arampour, meantime, is the former president of the Iranian community of Manitoba and says he doesn't support the Islamic Republic's theocratic regime, but also doesn't like seeing Israeli airstrikes turning his country's infrastructure, quote, into rubble. The conflict started last week when Israel launched strikes targeting Iran's nuclear and missile sites. And the world is still waiting to see if the U.S. will become directly involved. My next guest is checking the news, he says, every 10 minutes. Majid Kermani has family in Iran. He's stressed and worried. He's lived in Canada for more than 20 years. He's a retired sculptor. He's a father, and he's known to many in Selkirk, Manitoba, where he lives, and where in the past his snow sculptures often stand as political commentary at times on news involving Iran, like the ongoing fight for the rights and freedoms of women. And Majid is with us this morning. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Who in your family, Majid, is still in Iran, and where are they?
Well, all my siblings are in Iran. I have a sister who lives in Tehran and a brother who lives in Isfahan, and the rest of my siblings and my parents live in east of Iran in a small town called Kashmir. So I have all my families there, and my wife's families are there too.
Now, there have been, we understand, communication blackouts. Have you been able to speak with them and connect with them?
Well, the communication stopped since yesterday morning, but I had messages exchanged with them in the last few days, and so far all of them are good. But I don't really know how this war ends. I am really nervous, like many Iranians over here in Canada. We are very nervous about the situation. We are not happy that another country invaded us, but this is what it is, unfortunately.
What do you see as the way forward?
Well, I don't know really how this conflict will be resolved. I have a bad feeling that the government in Iran insists on having this conflict running, and the bombing from Israel and now backing by United States may destroy many lives in Iran, the infrastructure, public services, and there will be so much of casualties. I have a very bad feeling about this, and I hope that someone somehow find a solution for this.
You believe that the solution lies with the people of Iran, is that right?
Yes, I believe the best solution will be somehow by going to majority of Iranian and see what they want from their government and how they want the government to be. Let the people of Iran choose what they want.
And when you say choose between, as you have put it, the Islamic Republic or a non-religious democratic system, is that correct?
Yes, before the revolution in 1979, we had a kingdom over there, but even the kingdom tried to make it somehow democratic, which maybe was not that successful. And that's why the revolution happened to have a democratic system. However, that system went, and then a religious one came, and that kind of free democratic system never been implemented the way that the people wanted in Iran.
You left Iran, so my curiosity leads me to ask if it were to come under some type of a non-religious democratic system, would you return?
Sure, yeah. If there is a non-religious system that gives the opportunity to everybody to use their knowledge and experience without considering their beliefs, yes, I would return to Iran. We can always hope for that democratic system to happen.
How do you feel about the U.S.? You've already stated, you believe this should be up to the people of Iran. But how do you feel about the U.S. considering getting directly involved?
Well, I think that would be a disaster if the U.S. get involved in this conflict. Then maybe Iranian government will ask their allies like Russia to get involved. And if that happens, then it will be a third world war in that region. So I don't see it as a good thing if the United States get involved in this.
I mentioned, Majid, that you're obviously a retired sculptor, as I said, and some of your beautiful snow work that sculptures you made. One in 2023, you described it as an Iranian woman. Her arms were reached to the sky, embracing freedom, as you said. And you told CBC at the time, quote, "I'm hoping someday in the future, all these women around the world will be treated equally like men," end quote. There will be people who would view the West getting involved in this war, or probably in any war, but in this as helping Iran to become a country where maybe something like that would happen. What is your view of that?
Well, I think if there is any involvement of other countries in Iran, they just need to come and help people of Iran to choose. As long as they come and help, that will be okay. But I don't think any kind of invasion, the way that we see right now from Israel and maybe United States, I don't think that will help at all.
What's the relationship back here, at home between the Iranian and the Israeli communities from your perspective at this time?
Well, I have colleagues at work who are Palestinian, who are from Israel, and we talk to each other. We are friends. We don't have any problems. I think most of the problems is between the government of Israel and the government of Iran. Us, normal people, we don't have any issue. We live together happily and friendly. I don't see any issue with the Jews or Israeli communities in Manitoba. The Iranian community, I think they are very good friends of every nation. So we are peaceful people who live here, and we want peace all over the world.
How's the Iranian community in Manitoba coming together right now to support each other?
Well, they try to support each other with any shape and form that they can. Well, obviously, from this side of the world, we can't do much for Iranian in Iran, but at least we help each other. I had a call yesterday from a friend who came to Iran and unfortunately stuck over there. He lived in Manitoba, and he said that he had a car problem. His wife over here had a car problem, so he asked me to help, and I messaged his wife and said I will happily.
You mentioned at the beginning of our conversation that you haven't heard from your family now since, I think you said it's been a day and a half. How are you coping with that, and how's your family coping, with not knowing?
Yeah, well, I asked my sister and brother to go to somewhere safe, and I hope that they did. So although I have no news from them, but I'm hoping that all of them are safe.
Do you have anything to add, Majid, that I haven't asked about that you'd like to say this morning?
I believe nobody wants war, and in this case, I believe the invasion of Israel to Iran should be strongly condemned, but it doesn't mean that we want the Islamic system to stay in power. After the revolution, the people of Iran have been through a lot of adversities and lived a life of misery. War between Iran and Iraq, sanctions imposed by the United States, and all the other difficulties that come from nuclear ambitions. So now that the war has started, and I wish it never did.
Thank you for speaking with us at this difficult time.
Thank you so much.
Majid Kermani is an Iranian Manitoban who has been in Canada since 2004. He lives in Selkirk, and I spoke with him yesterday. By the way, at this time, CBC has reached out to the man that was mentioned in that interview, the friend of Majid. And so we've reached out actually to the spouse of that Manitoba man who's stuck in Iran because, of course, because of the internet and the blackouts, we can't reach him. But we have reached out to his partner here. We will bring you that update once we do have something confirmed.
There are stories you just can't stop thinking about. They take you somewhere, they introduce you to someone, they share something new with you. Liftoff. Those are the stories you want to share with your friends, and CBC's award-winning documentary team is bringing them to you every week on Storylines. Storylines, new this season on CBC Radio 1 and always on demand on the CBC Listen app.
Friday morning, cloudy 17, and Sarah Sanders has popped in just with a bit of a traffic update.
Good morning. So the stall at northbound Kenniston at Grant that we were mentioning, the stall has been cleared. So things should be moving along in that area. But of course, you can always give me a call on the CBC commuter line, 204-788-3093.
Now, for people that might be watching on YouTube, they're going to see that you're wearing beautiful beaded earrings and a beautiful ribbon skirt, actually. Can you stand up? Because if you stand up, people will actually see part of your skirt, and then hike it up just a touch so they can see the bottom. Now we can see the ribbons on camera here. It's black, and it's got sort of a printed fabric with white. The ribbons are all gray and black. All right, we got it, Sierra.
Perfect.
And the earrings are coordinated. Who made this for you? You have family that's in the States?
Yeah, so an aunt in the States, my family, or my dad's side of the family, his mom's side of the family, comes from Standing Rock Reservation down kind of in South North Dakota, going onto the border of South Dakota there. So it's in North Dakota and then bleeds into South Dakota as well. So my dad's mom's family is all from there. So yeah, this ribbon skirt was made by my aunt Melissa. And then these earrings were made by an old friend of mine, Sarah, who is a Métis here. So yeah, I've got a little bit of everything going on from everyone.
People, if you can't, for those people that can't see this, they're coordinated though, like not just with color. The actual lines in your beaded earring patterns match the lines in your skirt. Like it's really gorgeous.
I know
work.
Sarah did a great job. I remember coming to her saying, I want to send her some inspiration, and then she just put her skills to work, and then they were just perfect.
What do you feel like when you're wearing it? Of course, we have National Indigenous Peoples Day on tomorrow. I'm presuming maybe you're giving a bit of a nod to that.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm doing. I feel very connected to my grandma and her heritage. Obviously, you know, she doesn't live up here in Winnipeg. She still lives down on reservation in North Dakota there. So whenever I wear it, I feel like she's sitting right next to me.
That's so pretty. I know you've worn it to work before, and we've talked about it. So I'm glad you got to share it with the listeners.
No, I appreciate it. I'm happy I get to share.
We have a panel coming up for tomorrow to acknowledge National Indigenous Peoples Day. These are young changemakers in Manitoba, so we're going to talk to them about what the day will mean to them and also about their work here. So stay tuned. That's Sierra Sanders. Of course, she is our show director for the next month or so here, filling in for Corey and on the air with us covering their commute. So that update there, if you want to reach her, 788-3093, if you have any other updates to pass along. It's time to update morning sports. Claude Fake has been standing by waiting to tell us about the Bombers playing the Lions again, but which quarterback will they face, Claude?
Yeah, Marcy, good morning. In fact, while the Blue Bombers appear set at quarterback for this week's rematch with the Lions, with Zach Aleros back in the fold, the Bombers aren't sure who they will face against the Lions in their rematch tomorrow night. Nathan Rourke was forced to leave last week's game with an injury and remains questionable, which would push veteran Jeremiah Masoli into the starter's role. Now, Bombers head coach Mike O'Shea has a lot of respect for the 36-year-old pivot.
You're not going to discount them. Jeremiah Mazzoli's playing. The things he can bring are just the level of experience he's had. He's been the main trigger man, the starting quarterback for a number of years for different teams. He's a fiery competitor. He can run the ball. He's strong. So there's a lot of stuff that is very similar.
Now, running back Brady Oliveira has been ruled out for the game. He was injured last week, suffered a shoulder injury, so he will not play against the Lions tomorrow.
NBA Finals, let's go there. They're headed.
That was a collective.
I know
that was bad.
I know. I was trying to move on from it because it's so sad. I can't believe it.
Is, yeah.
I can't imagine how disappointed he must be too, right?
Yeah, it's early in the season. It's all good.
All right. Well, someone's going to be disappointed in the NBA final because there's one game left, and it's a winner-take-all Game 7 Sunday night.
Yeah, Marcy, for the first time in nearly a decade, the NBA Finals are going to a seventh and deciding game. The Indiana Pacers more than set the pace last night, home against the Oklahoma City Thunder, building up a 30-point lead by the end of the third quarter and cruising to a 108-91 victory. Now, a couple of key contributors included Aurora, Ontario's Andrew Nebhard, who scored 17 points, and Pascal Siakam, the former Raptor, who certainly knows a thing or two about winning a championship. He had 16 points and 13 rebounds and is excited about extending the series to a winner-take-all conclusion on Sunday.
We worked so hard for this opportunity, and it's just a blessing. Yeah, we're fortunate to be here. I just always remember the times where, I had to go on vacation early. Those things always play in my mind, so just be appreciative of the fact that we're still here. And we have a great opportunity. So it's just going to be all about hard play and just understanding what's in front of us and going out there and living it out there on the floor.
Now, either way, two Canadians will get a chance to hoist the Larry O'Brien Trophy, Nebhard or Ben Mathurin for the Pacers, or Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Lou Dort for the Thunder. And to that we say, what a boot that.
I like that. Soccer Canada, let's finish with this. They're trying to smooth the waters with CONCACAF.
Yeah, Marcy, lost in Canada's Gold Cup opening match rout of Honduras Tuesday night at BC Place in Vancouver was another incident off the pitch for Soccer Canada. For Canada Soccer, head coach Jesse March is currently serving a 2-match suspension from CONCACAF after he was red carded in a Nations League game back in March. And this may have been what triggered the suspension, comments leading up to that match.
They've felt that disrespect for a long time. We try to be a reflection of what we think our community and our country deserves, right? But it does beckon the question, how do we gain more respect and earn more respect in these kinds of situations?
Now, March defending his players and the squad at that time, and he may be looking at more unwanted time off after the Confederation announced Wednesday evening that he is under investigation for incidents that occurred during Tuesday's match, including offensive language against officials. Now, yesterday, Canada Soccer said that they had received a notice from CONCACAF and would submit their own findings to resolve the matter. Now, Marsh is expected to talk to the media today ahead of tomorrow night's Gold Cup match versus Curaçao in Houston.
Have an awesome weekend. Thanks for the week, Claude.
All right, Marcy, it's been fun. Thank you.
That's Claude Fake filling in for Scott Reguer on CBC Sports. Your CBC Winnipeg News is next.
This is CBC News. At 7:30, we're at 17 degrees with partly cloudy skies over downtown Winnipeg. We're expecting hot and humid weather today. Good morning. I'm Matt Humphrey. The roughly 5,000 wildfire evacuees from Flin Flon are getting some good news. They're going home soon. Deputy Mayor Allison Dallas Funk says the evacuation order will likely be lifted next Wednesday. But first, the city needs time to make sure critical services and essential businesses are running. Dallas Funk spoke to the community in a Facebook video.
Wednesday morning, based on fire condition and behavior, the evacuation order will be lifted for everyone. We will be securing transportation for all of those folks that used our transportation on May 28th when we had to leave our community.
She also encourages residents to be patient because when they return, the hospital will have limited services and the grocery store will lack supplies. Officials say firefighters are making progress on the 2 wildfires near the city. And more good news this morning for the northern wildfire zone as the town of Lynn Lake prepares to welcome some 600 evacuees back home. Mayor Brandon Delowich says the mandatory evacuation order will be lifted in a half hour's time. He says he's proud of the work done by the 150 or so firefighters, mostly volunteers, to save the town, even though many people lost cottages in nearby Burge Lake Provincial Park.
I'm sorry that the destruction that took place up here, and just know that everything we've done is to save your homes in town. And it's a different town you're coming back to, but at least you have a town to come back to.
The wildfire near Lynn Lake covers more than 70,000 hectares and is still listed as out of control. Delowich says the town will remain on evacuation alert in case the situation changes. And after a month-long evacuation, property owners in Nopaming Provincial Park got to go home.
Oh, it's not too bad. Things are looking pretty good in here. I don't smell too much. That's not bad for a month of no power. Let's check the freezer, though.
That's the sound of Martin Enns being pleasantly surprised to see no damage to the cottage he built on Booster Lake. He says it was emotional to see all the burned out areas in the park, and Enns knows he's lucky.
I'm so grateful, for one thing, that it's still here and that the firefighters were able to stop the fire just a short distance from our block road. So, a huge shout out to the firefighters and the water bombers that saved this place.
With the power back on, everything in his freezer has refrozen, but Enns says he's not taking any chances on spoiled food. In other news, one of the last banks in Winnipeg's West End is closing July 10th. The RBC branch at Sargent and Sherbrooke is merging with the one on Ellis near Polo Park. The bank tells CBC News it made the decision after considering how best to serve their clients who are increasingly doing their banking online. But some residents fear their neighborhood is becoming a financial desert. Ella Hudson doesn't have a car and still does all of her banking in person.
Well, I know that I'll be doing a lot of biking, to do banking to pay my bills and not to go through the bank to do that.
The only other full-service bank in the West End is the TD branch on Notre Dame. The closest RBC branch is in the Manitoba Hydro Building downtown, and that's about a 20-minute walk away. For the first part of the year, more people moved to Manitoba from other parts of Canada than left. According to Statistics Canada, that hasn't happened in Manitoba since 2004. The province historically loses more people to interprovincial migration than it gains. The NDP government took partial credit for the quarterly net gain of just over 100 people. The provincial labour minister says Manitoba's efforts to attract more skilled workers are succeeding. Manitoba also saw its population grow through immigration, but not as much as usual. That's due to federal policies curbing immigration levels. And finally, the House of Commons rises today, with MPs returning to their home ridings for the summer break. But the House can't adjourn until debates wrap up on Bill C-5, the controversial legislation which would allow Cabinet to speed up the approval process for major industrial projects like mines and pipelines and ports. And that has up until now sailed through committee. That's due in part to the support of the opposition Conservatives. And that's your CBC News from Winnipeg.
All right. Thank you, Matt.
Back soon.
Matt will be back soon before the top of the hour with more headlines. Let's find out what's going on in our regional forecast for your Friday here on CBC. Abby is in. We need good weather. We got all kinds of different events going on this weekend, Abby. The official arrival of summer and then National Indigenous Peoples Day, all that stuff at the Forks going on.
Most definitely. It's going to be mild in the south and just cloudy conditions. That's what we'll see this weekend. Looking at conditions right now in Winnipeg, 17 and mostly cloudy. We're seeing the sun try to crawl through behind those cloudy conditions. We'll see mostly a mix of sun and clouds today. Warming up close to 28 degrees and the winds coming from the south. It's going to stay light to breezy at some point, and then a good chance of showers overnight into tomorrow. More like cloudy conditions tomorrow, highs near 27. In the Pembina Valley region, we're looking at similar conditions, also partly cloudy right now. More than Winkler, Altoona, Morris, we're seeing 19 degrees in that area. Expect sun and clouds today. We do have a slim chance of showers also, plus a risk of thunderstorm, highs near 27. In Brandon, it is 15 right now, partly cloudy also. We're expecting a mix of sun and clouds, a good chance of showers later. We saw fog patches earlier. It's still clearing. We're going to see winds from the southeast, feeling mild to breezy at some point, high around 25. In the Parkland region, we're looking at mostly sunny conditions, temperatures around 15 degrees and 16 degrees in the Parkland region. Expect also sun and clouds today with a chance of showers and a risk of thunderstorm in the forecast. The winds will be coming from the east and becoming breezy at some point this afternoon. We warm up to 23 for folks in that region. In the Interlake region, we're seeing 16 degrees, 17 degrees in some areas. Gimli right now, 16 degrees. We will see cloudy skies and a chance of showers also in the forecast, plus local smoke still present in that region. Warming up to 24 degrees, but with the humidity factored in, it's going to feel like 29. The winds will be coming from the north east, and tonight stays mostly cloudy. Also, that chance of showers will be hanging back in the Gimli region. Tracking conditions in the powerful influence surrounding areas right now, sunny with smoke in the air. Temperatures around 11 degrees. Expecting sunshine today. Warming to a high of 23. Light winds turning to mild from the northeast later by the evening period. For Thompson, partly cloudy also, 13 degrees right now. We'll see sunshine through the day, high around 22 with the winds coming from the northwest, and then it turns breezy at some point. Churchill, we saw fog there earlier. That's cleared. Now it's mostly cloudy, 6 degrees. Today expect a mix of sun and clouds. There's a chance of showers also this afternoon. High will be just around 13 degrees. So it's like goodbye spring, hello summer. It's beginning at 9:42 today.
All right. Thanks very much, Abby.
Thank you.
We're all in a good mood today, I think. You know, that Friday, even the news about the wildfire evacuees, especially Flin Flon, because there's 5,000 people from that city that are going to be getting ready to go home. Radio Noon yesterday had this awesome thing that Marge did, an interview, which if you haven't seen it, go back, check it out and listen to the music. They had an artist on who actually grew up in Flin Flon, is now in Saskatchewan, but wrote a song about Flin Flon. It was sort of an ode to the place, but it was all written special around the wildfires, around you just sort of feeling helpless to watch everything happening there and just sort of waiting and hoping. So it's nice to hear some of those positive stories of return. So Flin Flon and Lynn Lake, as you heard Matt sing in the news, will be able to be going home. Lynn Lake today, Flin Flon next week. 21 minutes to 8 o'clock, and let's find out how the commute's going. This is usually when things might start getting busy. Sierra's in with updates.
I got a call from Joshua. There's a stalled van on northbound St. Mary's just before Marion, and it's in the right lane, so you'll have to keep left to pass. When I spoke with him, he said things were starting to back up there, so expect some delays there, and I'll update it as the morning goes on here. But if there's anything slowing you down out there, whether you're in the city or you're on the highways, be like Joshua and give me a call on the CBC commuter line, 204-788-3093.
All right, thanks, Sierra.
Thank you.
Well, we heard Matt mentioning in the news some of the ongoing conversations that have been coming out of the G7 summit. And Prime Minister Mark Carney says that Canada will not tolerate transnational repression. That was his response when he was asked yesterday about his chat with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi at the G7 summit. We wanted to give you a bit more on that. So here's some of what reporters asked him on India.
On India, what's changed in the last 8 or 9 months or so where Canada is ready to have Indian diplomats back in the country, including a high commissioner? And did a Hardeep Singh Najjar come up at all in your conversation with Prime Minister Modi?
Well, let me go back to a very basic level, because this is a basic, almost foundational, necessary first step for the relationship, which is to exchange high commissioners and re-begin effectively diplomatic service and consular service. There are very deep ongoing ties of people to people, not just certainly of Indo-Canadians, but of Canadians as a whole with India. We don't have a high commissioner in India right now. We're not serving Canadians in India right now because of where we are. The reciprocal would hold for the Indian government. So just having a basic level of engagement is, in many respects, a duty of the government. I'm glad that we came to that agreement understanding. That agreement understanding also is based on several things. The law enforcement cooperation, which Claire is saying, understanding of issues of transnational repression, which were discussed not just at the G7 but also in the discussions the Prime Minister and I had. Look, I'd never make it a policy to give a line-by-line transcript readout of exactly what's said in a meeting, and I'm not about to start now.
Next question. The whole commission in our CSIS report says that India is one of the main perpetrators of foreign interference and espionage in Canada. I know you don't want to give a line-by-line conversation about what you had with Prime Minister Modi, but given how this does affect Canadians very personally, what did you say to Prime Minister Modi about it, and did you tell him to stop it?
We've made our position very clear, including recently, that we will not tolerate transnational repression in Canada from any source, geographic or institutional.
So still lots of questions coming out of the G7 summit, and those questions specifically on India yesterday. That was Prime Minister Mark Carney responding to reporters in Ottawa. Time right now is 7:42 a.m. I'm Marcy Marcusa with our team here at Information Radio, and I want to mention that coming up after 8 o'clock on the show, we're going to build on a story that Matt has in the news this morning. It is about a bank that's been lost. What would you do if the only bank in your neighborhood shut its doors for good? Well, in Winnipeg's West End, some residents are in a race right now. They're trying to save their local bank before they say it's too late. So stay tuned. We'll have that for you in more detail coming up on the program after 8. Right now, though, because it's National Indigenous Peoples Day tomorrow, we're kind of taking advantage today here on Information Radio, because we're not on tomorrow, to play some music from our fabulous local artists who are also Indigenous. So this morning we pulled a tune from Indian City's album Tomorrow. This is The Best.
I used to skate like Mario Lemieux. Had the park on a string, you should see the things I do. But now not so much.
I used to know every word to songs on the radio. Vanilla Ice and Scary Spice cracked on my stereo. But now, not so much.
But there's still some things that I'm pretty great at. Yeah, I can safely say I ain't bragging when I say that. When it comes to loving you, used to be a life of the party. And all those 80s rock stars had nothing on me. But now, not so much. But there's still some things that I'm pretty great at. Yeah, I can safely say I ain't bragging when I say that. When it comes to loving you, I'm better than the rest. When it comes to loving you, I'm easily the best.
So we're listening to the best from Indian City's album Tomorrow. This album came out, of course, after the band's frontman Vince Fontaine passed away. But they've made so much beautiful music and Juno-nominated music, and they are going to be performing. You have to check out their website for their latest dates. We are playing all Indigenous artists this morning because tomorrow's National Indigenous Peoples Day, and there's lots of things that you can do for that day. We started the show this morning talking to the Forks, and they have all kinds of things going on, in fact, for 11 different days. So check that interview out on the CBC Listen app. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Thanks for being here on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube on CBC. Let's dip into the weather for a moment here on the Friday. We have mostly cloudy skies in Winnipeg. It's 17 degrees and winds are calm. In Brandon this morning, partly cloudy for you. It's 15. Thompson's partly cloudy and 13 degrees. It's going to be sticky today. I know I put a skirt on because I'm like, oh, okay, later today I need to take off this sweater and really cool off because the high is 28 in Winnipeg. With Humidex, it's going to feel like 34. So the kind of day where you want to have layers, you want to have water. I have one of those portable fans too because I can never be cool enough. So it's going to be really sticky here today in Winnipeg. Partly cloudy tonight. That's going to lead to the weather to want to sort of change, right? So often we get those changes in the forecast, and yeah, there's a thunderstorm that could be happening overnight tonight. We have a 60% chance that we're going to see some showers. Well, speaking of National Indigenous Peoples Day, what is it all about? It is a day to celebrate Canada's First Nation, Inuit, and Métis cultures and contributions. This morning, we're meeting some Indigenous youth changemakers who've been working to inspire and make a difference in their communities and in our community. We wanted to hear their thoughts as we head into tomorrow and about what the day means to them. So joining us is recently elected Southern Chiefs Organization Youth Chief Billy Bird. He's from Peguis First Nation, and he's here with us via Zoom. Hey there, Billy.
Hey.
Thanks for being with us today.
Yeah, it's nice to be with you today.
And in studio with us, we have Heavenly Martins of Broken Head Ojibwe Nation, who's a youth counselor for Treaty 1 and student support at Red River College, who has also shared with us before on CBC a lot of the adversity that she has overcome to get where she is now. Nice to see you in studio, Heavenly.
Hi, nice to see you again, Marcy.
And Selena Starling is here too. Hi, Selena.
Hi, Marcy. How are you?
I'm very well. How are you?
Doing very well, thank you.
Good. Selena is a self-described foster care survivor who's launched her own company, which we've also talked about before. It's called Community of Big Hearts. It offers education and workshops on truth and reconciliation. So we're calling this our half hour of overachievers. All three of you are amazing. Selena, why don't I start with you? Why is it important to have youth voices advocating, first of all, for Indigenous issues, do you think?
I've noticed that even when I was younger, I never heard enough youth representation, especially Indigenous youth. And now that we have, as you say, many overachievers, it's important for us to shed light on the survivals that we bring to the table, the accomplishments, the resilience that we truly have. It's important because we never saw this representation for the past few decades. And now that we're all coming in abundance, it's important for us to get our voices out there.
Would you agree, Heavenly, that sort of when you were younger, did you feel like maybe there weren't a lot of like youth advocating, and now there's this moment in our country and in our province?
Yeah, for sure. You know, I really felt that lack growing up. It was really prevalent, you know, and it was part of why I felt so uninspired, I guess. You know, like I had dreams, but also I didn't try because it seemed like they were just unachievable. So you know? And so now, like as she said, they're all coming out in abundance in all sorts of fields, and it's really empowering and inspiring to see so many people, you know, just being themselves and bringing change. It's incredible.
Billy, you had a slightly different experience just because you grew up with sort of a lot of advocacy around you, right? So would you have grown up going to like different events and even protests sometimes? Oh, we've lost your audio there. I think you're on mute.
Oh, my fault there.
Oh, it's okay. No worries.
Yeah, so a lot of the times when I was younger, I would attend these gatherings with my mother and, you know, my sisters. And you know, I didn't quite understand at the time, like, that they meant something, you know, that they were symbolic, and they had great importance behind it. You know, as I continued on through my young years, I started to realize that, you know, these events and these awareness walks and these protests, you know, they weren't just symbolic, but they were a part of my training to want to become an advocate for the Indigenous youth.
In terms of your view of your culture growing up, Selena, you know, also because of not sort of having, as you said, some of the people to look to when you were younger, what did it leave you with as a young person in terms of what you thought was possible?
Yeah, growing up, I had an immense amount of internalized racism, so I never had the opportunity to see my community thrive and succeed, especially being an urban Indigenous person. I was always surrounded by the ideas of my people in the worst light possible, and I never had the opportunity to reconnect with my culture, to even have Indigenous people to look up to, including my own family. So the fact that I never had that, it didn't give me the hope or inspiration to know that I could do anything. And it was only in the very recent years that I had the opportunity to reconnect with my culture and to even see that it's possible to move forward.
Is that what gave you the hope then?
Yes.
Was it turning for you?
Yeah. I think once I was able to look at my internalized racism and overcome that, it was a big turning point in my own life where I was able to feel hope that I was going to succeed, not just because I was an Indigenous person, but because I was a human. I was going to have that opportunity to move forward, to succeed.
What was your turning point, Heavenly? Like, where did the hope come for you, especially because you also alluded to the fact that when you were younger, you sort of didn't see it?
Yeah, because I grew up in the North End, and I was also kind of surrounded by negative stereotypes, both from, you know, other people and my own family. They also had that internalized negativity. And so it wasn't until I had honestly moved to my community, moved to the res, and at first I was, you know, really upset because I had grown up in the city, I'd lost everything, it was a big change. But being out there in the land and being truly surrounded by my people, my community, it really changed how I viewed it. You know, going to a powwow for the first time, you know, hearing the drum, it really lit something in me. Like, I feel like that's something that everybody who has intergenerational trauma and who has been separated, they have that moment where they hear it for the first time, and it's like, it's indescribable, but when you feel it, you know what it is and the importance of it, and it's like a coming home, almost a healing. And so it wasn't, like I said, until I moved home, which is funny because people who grew up on the res are, they want to leave, right? But meanwhile, I was like, now that I moved to the city for school, I miss it so much, right?
Billy, you were elected Southern Chiefs Organization Youth Chief, as we've mentioned here, and you're 18, right, I think, right now? Yeah. Why is it important for Indigenous youth to take up leadership roles in community?
Well, you know, I think it's important for Indigenous youth to step up in the leadership roles because, you know, we are the generation that is inheriting these decisions. You know, we are the ones that are going to be taking over after these decisions have been made. And I think it's vital and important that our youth are a part of these conversations. And, you know, as youth chief, I feel it's my due diligence to advocate for that, to advocate for the youth to be at the table, to hear those conversations. You know, we need to be able to nurture our children as they once were nurtured back in our natural laws. You know, we took care of our children, we walked with them, and I still believe that today, that, you know, we need to be nurturing our children, walking with them every step of the way. And I say this a lot, but, you know, like, Indigenous youth are rising, and we are going to continue to rise. And in order for that to happen, the youth need to be part of the conversation. The youth's voice need to be heard.
What does tomorrow mean to you, Indigenous Peoples Day? What will you be reflecting on, Selena?
Tomorrow, I'll be reflecting on my own family and my own experiences. I know that many people have heard the story about how my mom passed away, and she froze to death here in Winnipeg because she was dealing with homelessness. And I'll be reflecting truly on my family's journey. My sister actually just graduated high school, and she's 22, so I'm going to be celebrating the wins of my family, but also the hurdles we've had to overcome to get here. And so for me, it's going to reflect on my background and where I came from, and truly how I became Selena Starling.
How about for you, Heavenly?
Similar to her, it kind of, I'll be celebrating and really spending time with my family and my partner, because my sister and I, we both graduated college this year. I have other family members who've also graduated, and this is like, it just means extra because we're all, a first gen, but we're all doing it at the same time, and we're all graduating at the same time.
So cool.
And so it's like, it's really important, and we got to celebrate our achievements and our resilience and our culture, right? So I just really want to take the time to be with my family and celebrate everything.
And you, Billy, what are you going to be thinking about tomorrow? What are you going to be doing tomorrow?
So I think of tomorrow as empowering, tomorrow is a reminder that we're still here, we're still strong, and we're still carrying the weight of the beauty of our nations. It's not just a celebration. I think it's a commitment, a commitment to keep learning, to keep standing up, and to keep protecting our way of life, It's a day to honor our ancestors and to serve our people, but also to walk forward with clarity, not just for the moment, but for the generations ahead. And I feel although, tomorrow will be a good day of, smiles, laughters, empowerment, and it's just going to be a beautiful day to see my culture celebrated, to see our people celebrated,
Selena, why is it important to have a day like National Indigenous Peoples Day for everyone to recognize, in your view? Because I know you've thought about this a lot, because some people say, why do we need this? You've heard that.
Yeah, I work all across Canada, so I see different types of views of people who don't understand the importance of this day and people that are very empowered to learn more. I find that with my work federally, with the provincial and federal governments, that it's so important for us to get this voice out there. But for just the everyday person, many people don't understand that this is a part of reconciliation, that our own education, unlearning, relearning, and listening is a part of reconciliation. And that's exactly what tomorrow needs to be for everybody, is the ability to unlearn what you had thought Indigenous peoples were, relearning the truth, and then getting to listen to stories. I think that's what tomorrow needs to be and has to be, is the ability to take that next step in your reconciliation journey.
And Heavenly, you're talking about hoping to inspire in Indigenous youth, with your own story, but you were inspired by, I think it was a Zach Whitecloud story years ago that kind of stayed with you?
Yeah, it was 2 years ago. I think I was at the AMC youth gathering they had when I was running for their youth council, and he was one of their guest speakers. And something that stuck with me was he was taking questions from the crowd, and someone had asked him if he had ever dreamed of being in the NHL, and he was very honest. He was I never did, because it was something that I didn't think was achievable for someone like me. And that really resonated with me, because as I said earlier, I was the same. I wanted to be as every little kid did, an actor, performer, something, famous, right? And I didn't really have there wasn't a lot of representation in media with Indigenous people, so I didn't think that was possible. I never tried, never really worked towards that, because same as him, I didn't think it was unachievable. And so I want to be able to kind of flip that way of thinking, get rid of the learned helplessness that our people have, and just let them know that no matter what anybody says or whatever they try to do to you, just as long as you keep going at it and working towards it, you can achieve whatever it is you want.
Amazing, amazing, amazing. All of you, the future is yours. Thank you so much. You're all incredible. Continuing your work. Billy Bird, thank you for being here via PegWest, via Zoom, and in studio with me, Heavenly Martins and Selena Starling. Thank you both so much.
Thank you.
Enjoy tomorrow. SCO Youth Chief Billy Bird, Heavenly Martins, Youth Counselor at Red River College. Selena Starling has launched her own company called Community of Big Hearts. They are a youth panel leading up to National Indigenous Peoples Day. Matt Humphreys in with quick headlines.
During the first quarter of 2025, more people moved to Manitoba from other parts of Canada than left. And that's a feat our province hasn't accomplished in a quarter since 2004. I'll have more news after World Report.
All right, thank you, Matt.
Back soon.
17 in Winnipeg, cloudy and calm. It's going to be sticky and hot today. Stay with us. The commute's moving pretty fine this Friday morning. We're going to hear from some really young voices coming up. Some of the students from Nijimakwa School have been celebrating National Indigenous Peoples Day already, so we're going to take you to what they've been learning. Stay tuned. Super cute.
Today on Q.
I'm Talia Schlanger, sitting in for Tom Power. For over 50 years, Tantu Cardinal has brought powerful Indigenous stories to life, from films like Dances with Wolves to Killers of the Flower Moon. She joins us to reflect on her remarkable career.
I have a whole new world in front of me, and I'm only sensing it.
Q, this morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app, or wherever you get your podcasts. The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current with Matt Galloway.
What if your wildest dance nights were actually in the afternoon? It's a thing. We'll hear why a growing number of people are pulling out their best dance moves before it gets dark, and why daytime dance parties are not just for older folk. That's coming up on The Current.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm Deanna Sumanak-Johnson. British and European foreign ministers hope to meet with their Iranian counterpart today in Geneva. The talks are aimed at finding a diplomatic solution to the deadly Iran-Israel conflict. The meeting comes a day after Donald Trump said he'll make a decision within 2 weeks whether to intervene militarily. CBC correspondent Chris Brown has more from Jerusalem.
Despite Israel's multi-layered anti-missile shield, ballistic rockets fired by Iran continued to get through. Only one was launched overnight, but it hit in Beersheba, destroying several buildings, the second time in as many days a southern Israeli city was targeted. Speaking on Israeli television, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said U.S. President Donald Trump will do what is good for the United States, and he will do what is good for Israel, implying Israel's attacks on Iran's nuclear and military facilities will not let up while Trump ponders his next moves. Netanyahu has continued to hint he hopes Iranians will help him meet his war aims by overthrowing their Islamic leaders, although there's no evidence any kind of popular uprising is imminent in Iran. Former Mossad official and analyst Seema Shine says it's likely this war may only end with some kind of U.S. involvement, either by joining in the attacks or waiting until both sides get fatigued.
At the end of the day, probably it will be the U.S. that will make the change and make both sides stop.
Iran has said it will not enter any negotiations over the future of its nuclear program as long as Israel keeps attacking, keeping expectations for today's talks with European leaders and Iran in Geneva low. Chris Brown, CBC News, Jerusalem.
The UK Ministry of Defence is launching a security review of its military bases after pro-Palestinian activists broke into its largest airbase and vandalized 2 of its planes. Video from the group Palestine Action shows members entering the base on scooters before spraying the planes with red paint. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer says the actions are, quote, disgraceful. British police are searching for the suspects. In this country, the Liberal government's major projects and internal trade bill will be voted on before the House of Commons rises for the summer. The legislation gives Cabinet sweeping powers by letting it quickly grant federal approvals for big industrial projects like mines, ports, and pipelines. Indigenous and environmental groups and some opposition MPs and senators have criticized the bill. The Yukon Liberal Party has a new leader this morning, and with that, a new premier. The vote was necessary after Ranj Pillay announced he was stepping down. This was the first contested leadership race for the party in 2 decades, and it came down to just a handful of votes. The CBC's George Moratis reports.
The evening began with excitement. The Yukon Liberal Party finally with a choice for leader, the first contested race in 20 years. Vying for the job, Mike Pemberton, a longtime Yukon businessman, and Doris Bill, former chief of the Kwanlin Dun First Nation. And then 90 minutes after voting closed, the results.
Ballots for Doris Bill, 429.
Ballots for Mike Pemberton, 442.
Just 13 votes separating the two candidates.
This is the honor of my life.
For Bill, disappointment. She was looking to become the first First Nations Premier of the Yukon. Bill would have also been the first born and raised Yukoner to serve as Premier.
It's a disappointing loss. I mean, it was so close. It is what it is. I mean, we're, at this point, I'm just very tired.
Bill, who attended residential school, says she's not sure at this point if she will run for the Liberals in the next general election. Right now, she's just processing what might have been.
Maybe someday, this territory will be ready for an Indigenous person in the Premier's office.
After a swearing-in ceremony, Pemberton will serve as Premier until at least the next general election. That has to take place no later than November 3rd. Another fact about Yukon's new Premier, he's the third Premier in a row from Nova Scotia. George Moratis, CBC News, Whitehorse.
Rescue crews are resuming their search in the rubble of yesterday's rock slide in Banff National Park. One hiker was killed and at least 3 others injured when a rock face gave way yesterday. Josh McLean reports.
At the base of Bow Glacier Falls, a plume of dust rises up into the sky. Caught on video moments after a rock cliff face broke off and collapsed on a group of hikers. The falls, about 30 minutes north of Lake Louise, are a popular spot for day hikes. Nicholas Brundell was nearby when it happened.
We had heard two rock falls before, so we decided to kind of keep a little bit lower down, a place we thought would be safe because they were kind of small rock falls. And then all of a sudden we heard this much louder noise, and I turned around and I see basically a whole shelf of a mountain come loose.
Parks Canada says the first report of the rockfall came in the early afternoon. Its visitor safety teams responded along with the RCMP. They found 1 person dead at the scene, 2 more were airlifted to hospital, and a 3rd was taken by ground ambulance. The search continues today with dogs and drones. Josh McLean, CBC News, Lake Louise, Alberta.
It's been 10 years since the Truth and Reconciliation Commission released its final report and 94 calls to action. Several of those calls focused on closing gaps in health outcomes between Indigenous and non-Indigenous communities. As Alison Northcott reports, while some of the steps have progressed, others have stalled.
Standing in front of Akusagak and the construction's happening here.
Kylie Aglukark looks out at a construction site in Iqaluit, where an addictions and trauma treatment center is being built that would allow people who live in the territory to receive care without traveling south. Aglukark is a program director at Nunavut Tungavik Incorporated, a treaty organization that represents Inuit in Nunavut.
Traveling all the way down south to have to take part in treatment and care, you're being removed from your language, from your culture.
Funding Indigenous healing centers was one of the 94 calls to action put forth by the Truth and Reconciliation Commission 10 years ago.
It fits perfectly in that call to action, and I'm hopeful that once this is up and running, that we have an opportunity to look at being able to build centers in each of Nunavut's regions.
Still, a decade later, of the 7 calls focused on health, including identifying and closing gaps in health outcomes like infant mortality and life expectancy between Indigenous and non-Indigenous communities, 4 are in progress, 3 have stalled, and none are complete, says Douglas Sinclair, who tracks the calls to action on his site, Indigenous Watchdog.
There's been positive things done across the country in different jurisdictions. Where they're providing funding to try and alleviate some of the issues. Just that what they're doing isn't enough to really counterbalance the negative stuff.
He says significant gaps remain, including access to federal data to measure health disparities and address them. Alison Northcott, CBC News, Montreal.
And finally, on this World Refugee Day, the European Union is reevaluating its migration policies. 2015 and 2016 marked a turning point in the migrant crisis, and in those years, more than 2 million refugees and asylum seekers reached Europe's borders. Today, there's still some debate whether they should stay. William Denslow reports from Brussels.
Habe ich das gut hingekriegt? Aus Afghanistan.
Genau.
Herzlich willkommen. Vielen Dank.
Khushal Asafi was a TV moderator in his native Afghanistan before the Taliban takeover in 2021. With assistance from the German government, he was able to relocate to Europe. Now, a teacher and freelance journalist in the city of Bonn, he says he feels a responsibility to assimilate.
You have to be at least ready to work, to integrate in society, and to be a good role model for other people.
The issue of integration has been used by right-wing groups across Europe to garner support for their anti-immigration policies, and a number of European capitals have hardened their position on migration. Executive Vice President Henna Virkkunen says the European Commission is now adapting its asylum rules.
The EU return policy is failing. Return rate remains very low at around 20%. Persons ordered to leave often escape the authorities.
Some EU member states want changes to how human rights laws are interpreted to make it easier to deport people who migrate to Europe through irregular channels. United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights Volker Turk says he's concerned.
I urge EU countries to put human rights at the centre of new regulations on returns and migration governance more generally.
Rights groups say the EU should shift focus towards effective integration to help people rebuild their lives. William Denslow for CBC News, Brussels.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm Deanna Sumanak-Johnson. This is CBC News.
Once you start losing your services, it's sort of like a death knell to a community, I think. It's hard to know if you can stop something once it's in motion.
That is the voice of a concerned Winnipegger. No matter who you are, everyone needs a bank. But what would you do if the only bank in your neighborhood was shutting down for good? We will continue this conversation this half hour on the show. You might have heard about some of the concerns in the news this morning. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio, live from downtown Winnipeg on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on that app and on YouTube. Welcome to Friday morning. Mostly cloudy right now, 19 degrees. It's going to be a very sticky day in Winnipeg. In addition, this half hour on the show, as we've been sharing, tomorrow is National Indigenous Peoples Day. We've had some incredible conversations with youth this morning. If you missed the panel before 8, you want to go back and re-listen, I promise. But this half hour, we're going to the littler set. We're going to hear from some of the students at Nijimakwa School, where they say every day is Indigenous Peoples Day. They set up something special yesterday and CBC was there, so stay tuned. We'll have that as well. Right now, Matt Humphrey is in with news headlines, and I believe a bit of good news. You probably have some news about the fire evacuees.
Yes, wildfire evacuees from northern Manitoba. The evacuation order for Lynn Lake was lifted at 8. So just 10 minutes ago, roughly 600 people are heading back to Lynn Lake. Meanwhile, in Flin Flon, the deputy mayor says the more than 5,000 people there who evacuated will likely get to go home on Wednesday. We'll hear more at the bottom of the hour. And a quick note, Winnipeg police say fire crews are working to put out a fire in Point Douglas this morning. They're in the 100 block of Euclid. Police are blocking traffic in the area while firefighters are on the scene. Our reporter is headed there now. More news at 8:30.
All right. Thank you very much, Matt. People will be leaning into that story. Right now, let's go to Abby to find out more about the forecast.
We are already warming up in the south. We're going to see sun and clouds today while the north still stays cool with cloudy conditions and a few showers in the forecast. Winnipeg right now, 19. The sun starting to break through those cloudy conditions. We're heading into a hot day. A mix of sun and clouds in the forecast. The high will get to 28. However, it's going to feel hotter than that. So it's going to be more like a humid day. Across the southern part, we're seeing temperatures between 16 and 20 degrees in Brandon, Gimli, and Dauphin right now. Also a warm, sunny, cloudy day. Highs close to 28, while up north we'll see temperatures warm up to 12 degrees in some areas and 23 degrees in some areas. Winnipeg right now, 19. Expect a hot day.
Thanks, Abby.
You're welcome.
So we have next a check on our morning commute. There's actually been a couple things going on this Friday. Sierra Sanders has been keeping on top of everything. Where are we at now?
So we got a call from Joshua. There was a stalled van on northbound St. Mary's just before Marion. It was in the right lane, so you would have to keep left to pass. But that was a while ago I got that call from Joshua. So if you have an update, I would appreciate it. So you can give me a call on the CBC commuter line, 204-788-3093.
Well, up first this half hour, as I mentioned, no matter who you are, you likely have a bank account. Many of us do, and many of us do bank online, but there are still some things like cash withdrawals or other services that you may want to do in person. But what would you do if the only bank physically in your neighborhood was shutting its doors for good? Well, the Royal Bank branch on Sargent and Sherbrooke is in the news this morning. That's because it's set to close on July 10th. And it's the only one like it in the neighborhood. A group of residents is determined to keep it open. Cheryl Martins is one of those residents fighting to stop the closure. She's lived in the neighborhood for decades, and she doesn't rely on the bank herself, she says, but she says many of her neighbors do. She's worried about them. She's even gone so far as to connect and meet with the bank manager to try to see what's going on. And she's in studio with us. Good morning.
Good morning, Marcy. Thanks for covering this.
Yeah. When did you learn the bank would be closing its doors?
Well, I was going in to get cash because it's my nearest cash point, and there was a sign on the glass doors, and so I took a picture of it, and then we followed up by getting in touch with our MP, Leah Gazan, to see if there was anything we could do. And we also let our other representatives know, like Uzoma Asaguera and Cindy Gilroy, and they all wrote letters back to us saying, this is a concern for us. And so then a little group of us got together and we met with the bank manager, the branch manager, and we tried to understand why they were closing.
And what did you understand from the conversation?
Well, they said it was an executive decision, which gives me the impression that it was made somewhere up the stream. And they said they wanted to better meet the needs of their clients, which sounded like they wanted more hours. And we felt that that's something that they could do here. So there wasn't a reason for them to move, in that regard. And then I suspect that their key reason is they want people to switch to mobile banking and cell phone banking, online banking. So I think that they're hoping everybody will just switch, but that's not really a reality for many, many people in our neighborhood.
So tell me a bit about your neighborhood and about the people that use the bank, like why you're worried about this and you think it's important to have that physical space there.
Well, there are both personal reasons and community-based reasons. So the personal reasons have to do with people who have a physical disability. And lots of people in our neighborhood use walkers and so on and use wheelchairs. We have people for whom the physical accessibility of the bank is important. And also this bank may suffer from having been too good. They have people who speak 8 different languages there. And we have an incredibly diverse neighborhood. We have people I looked up the stats, and we have, from the 2021 census, we have 37% of our population is non-white and 22% of our population is Indigenous. So it's a very diverse population. And so having that kind of service has been really helpful.
And no one's going to get 8 languages on the phone.
No, they're going to go through that, press 1 for this, 2 for this. It's going to be very complicated.
What worries you about the distance you'd have to go, or your neighbors would have to go to physically be at a bank now? And I don't know what that would mean for you. Like, is it multiple blocks away, or would it be quite a ways to find the next physical ATM? You have to take a taxi or an Uber?
Well, I live in the middle, so this bank is 3 minutes for me. The next bank is 10 minutes there and back. So it adds 20 minutes to every trip, that kind of thing. For people who will need to switch, there are 2 financial concerns. One is if you use another ATM, it costs $3.50 per transaction. So if they go to just an ordinary money point or whatever they're called, an ATM, they are going to be charged extra for that. And if they have to take a bus or take a taxi, that all adds to what's really the cost of their banking.
Yeah. Also, I guess on computer banking and internet banking, I think it doesn't acknowledge that not everybody has.
Right. Like there's an assumption, and we have. I also looked up the poverty stats. 23% of the population in our community are low-income people. And so, low-income people, if they get a computer, can be kind of accused of wasting their money on a computer when they don't need it. So you're kind of in a damned if you do, damned if you don't position around phones and computers. And many people do not have. The person that was quoted in the news story earlier, Ella, she has a home phone, of course, but is not interested in a cell phone or having a computer. It's not a possibility for her right now. So, I think the assumption is that this is the direction that we're going, and it just doesn't work for everybody. And in a neighborhood like ours, we have to try and keep as many of the ordinary things as possible, like a grocery store, an accessible, Dollarama type store, and losing your bank is a big deal.
You actually use a term that comes from grocery stores because we often hear about food deserts.
Yeah.
But you say this is going to make your neighborhood a banking desert.
It will. Like for people, I really do not know what people are going to do. I've been just chatting with my neighbors, and some people have said, well, I'll just have to take a taxi. But those things all add to the cost. And I checked on how much the RBC Bank made last year, and they made $16.2 billion, right? Like that's quite a bit of money, So I think we would like them to not just move, to think about the neighborhoods specifically that they're in and how important they are to a community.
Now, as you mentioned, some members of leadership, Minister Zoma Asugwera and City Councillor Cindy Gilroy, have written letters condemning the bank closure. What more would you like to see from them, or what are the next steps from here?
Well, we have a couple of things. Leah Gazan in her letter talked about the Financial Consumer Agency of Canada, and she wrote a letter to the Minister of Finance suggesting that he have the Financial Consumer Agency of Canada address this concern. So that, I don't know, that might be a possibility. We're also having a meeting. We went to XQ's, which people in the neighborhood will know. It's a place at 551 Sargent. And this coming Thursday, June 26th, we're going to have a meeting from 12 to 1 and another one from 6 to 7 to try and see if there are other community concerns that could, that we could take forward, or if community members have other ideas, or to see what people think they're going to do now, if it closes. And I mean, I guess a distant hope would be that if this closes, at least another banking institution might think, well, this seems like a pretty active community. This would be a good place to be. But we really want this bank to stay, because otherwise everybody has to switch accounts. It's a convenience that will be lost, and it means more in our neighborhood than it does in other neighborhoods where we don't have as many people driving and all that kind of stuff.
So June 26th is next Thursday. I think I have my date right.
Yes, you're right.
Excellent.
You're right.
So XQs between 12 and 1 and 6 and 7 if people want to weigh in.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. They're more than welcome. And Sal, who runs XQs, is always very welcoming. So
yeah, Sal and Ventino, really neighborhood minded. Cheryl, thank you so much for being in here and talking about your concerns and some of your neighbors' concerns as well. We appreciate it.
Well, thank you for covering it, Marcy.
That is Cheryl Martins, one of the residents of Winnipeg's West End. CBC did, by the way, reach out to RBC for a statement. A spokesperson for RBC says the West End branch is merging with the one on Ellis Avenue near Polo Park. They say, just to reiterate here, that the decision was made after considering how to best serve their clients as more people use other banking methods.
The 2025 Inspire Awards, Vision and Visionaries, celebrating Indigenous excellence and sharing remarkable contributions of First Nations, Inuit and Métis people in Canada. 12 outstanding Indigenous achievers will be honored in a unique viewing experience, blending live action and animation, showcasing their accomplishments and cultures through a cinematic journey. The 2025 Inspire Awards, Saturday, June 21st at 7 p.m., 8 Atlantic, 8:30 in Newfoundland on CBC and CBC Gem.
8:22 a.m. is the time right now. I'm Marcy Marcusa, and of course we're live on Treaty 1, but Manitoba made up of 5 different treaty lands and the Métis Nation all across Manitoba. So many different languages and diverse cultures to explore. So good morning to everyone listening from Fox Lake to Roseau River, from Little Grand Rapids to Sapatuatic this morning on Information Radio. As you've just been hearing, of course, tomorrow is the big day, officially, June 21st, National Indigenous Peoples Day. But next in the show, for Nijimakwa School, they say every day is Indigenous Peoples Day. Yesterday, the school set up at the Urban Reserve, Nauadena, for a little celebration. They had cake and pizza. They have this makeshift teepee made of branches. And the kids, the young students, enjoyed a day on Treaty 1 to celebrate their heritage. Many of them with their Indigenous heritage, of course. CBC's Sid Sundance Horshig met with them to learn what cultural celebration means to them.
Bonjour, my name is Ruben Boulette, and I have the honor of being the principal here at Nijimakwa School. We're celebrating Indigenous Peoples Day today, but if you really think about it, what we do as a school is we celebrate Indigenous people every day.
Should we put it right there?
Nijimakwa School was started in the early 90s, and it was a grassroots movement for Indigenous peoples in the North End to have a cultural school where Indigenous students can learn their culture and ceremony in an urban setting.
My name is Leanne Dysart, and I'm the vice principal at Nijimakwa. You see it?
Yeah.
The school's a really special place, and it's a very unique place in Canada. And it is a school that carries Indigenous values. It is about community.
And now the time is between 12 and 1.
And we're going to have cake soon, right?
With Indigenous Peoples Day coming up, what do you think that means for young people?
It's a time to celebrate who they are and be proud of who they are and get out and show that pride. You know, sometimes it's funny when people talk to us about celebrating a certain Indigenous, like the Indigenous Day or a particular event, and it's like, it's just who we are. It's just every day, right? So the culture aspect, smudging, it's just normal. It's what we do. It's nothing out of the ordinary.
For us, every day is a celebration of indigeneity and coming together as Indigenous people and being a community of non-Indigenous educators and non-Indigenous educators, just to understand who we are in this time and place, and really what it means to be an Indigenous person in the city of Winnipeg.
Can you tell me about what you guys are doing here today?
Having fun. This is what I made. It's a tree trunk from Mother Earth. For the unicorn, I use sticks. For the bird, I use the seed. This is the wing and this is the little beak, and you can tell this is a grasshopper, which I'm not finished yet.
So with Nichimakwa School, a lot of the kids there, they celebrate their culture and you learn a lot about it. Why do you think that is important?
Because in the olden days, European people made us forget our ways. So people now are trying to make us remember those ways.
She's always gone too long. Magical, a Pimanja. I wonder this time where she's gone. I wonder if she's gonna stay. It ain't no sunshine when she's gone. This house just ain't no home. Magical, a Pimanja. Nigi kitam, I know. Nigi kitam, I know. Nigi kitam, I know. Nigi kitam, I know. Hey, gotta leave your thing alone. Ain't no sunshine. Kawin makuam siya pinindi. Only darkness every day. Kawin makuam siya pinindi. And she's always gone too long. Anytime she goes away. Nigi kitam, I know. Nigi kitam, I know. Nigi kitam, I know. Nigi kitam, I know. Said, hey, gonna leave me on the day alone. Ain't no sunshine when she's gone.
Pretty cool, hey? I know I've heard this one before. I love it. I don't know if you have. It's Mitchell McCoon's. It's his version of Bill Withers' Ain't No Sunshine. The lyrics there flipping between English and Ojibwe. So he says it's a reflection of what he heard growing up in a bilingual household. His grandma would swap back and forth between languages. And by the way, just before that, big thanks to the kids from Nijimakwa School who were open to having CBC at their celebration for National Indigenous Peoples Day. It is officially coming up tomorrow, but they were out celebrating already. And Sid Sundance Horshig brought us that story. Marjorie Dalhouse has popped in to tell us what's coming up on the call-in portion of Radio Noon.
Well, hi, Marcy. Hi. The weather is nice. It's warming up today. So let's get back to talking about gardening. Our gardening expert, Sylvia Grantham from the Selkirk and District Horticultural Society will join us once again to take your gardening questions after 12:30 on Radio Noon. And I know a lot of people have questions how to take care of those plants, make them last this summer. So, yeah.
Speaking of summer, first official day, right? Tomorrow.
That's right, yes.
So awesome. Perfectly timed. Good Friday column. I like it.
Yeah. Thank you, Marcy.
Thank you. So that's between 12:30 and 1 on Radio Noon. The gardening call-in today. They're bringing it back. There's always a lot of people left on the line when they open the lines, I know. Traffic, just before news here, and I know news will cover a bit more of this, but there is an issue at Euclid and Hallett, so we'll hear more about that from Matt in a moment. Traffic's blocked there right now, so just avoid the area and find another route. Help us stay on top of what's happening, though. If you do see something else that's urgent right now, even though we're nearing the end of the show, please do call Sierra at 788-3093. That's 788-3093. Well, I also want to mention, just before we head into news here, that this weekend, all of the events that are happening at the Forks and all of the events that are happening all around Manitoba, we've kind of compiled everything together for National Indigenous Peoples Day. So if you're planning your Friday, planning your weekend, rather, you can check things out at cbc.ca/Manitoba, and you're going to find a story about that there. Right now, here's CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. At 8:30, we're at 19 degrees with a mix of sun and cloud over downtown Winnipeg. We're expecting hot and humid weather today. Good morning, I'm Matt Humphrey. Residents of Flin Flon are counting down the days. The city of just over 5,000 people plans to lift its evacuation order next Wednesday morning. Flin Flon has been evacuated since late May because of wildfires, and Deputy Mayor Alison Dallas Funk made the announcement last night on Facebook. Before people can return, she says the city needs to make sure critical services and essential businesses are running, and Dallas Funk expects that to happen in the next few days.
We're really glad to give our community this information, but please advise that not everything will be up and running 100%, and we need to be patient about that and mindful and bring with you what you can.
Officials say crews are making steady progress on suppressing the two wildfires near Flin Flon. Also last night, hundreds of wildfire evacuees from Lynn Lake got the news they've been waiting for. The town, 234 kilometers north of Flin Flon, has lifted its mandatory evacuation order. That was effective a half hour ago. That order was put in place on May 27th and led to the departure of some 600 people from the town and 280 more from nearby Marcel Colombe First Nation. Lynn Lake Mayor Brandon Delowich says provincial wildfire officials have gave the go-ahead even though the fire continues to burn.
It's not that far out of town, but I believe they said roughly a kilometer, but all pretty much burnt forest already. So wildfire told us it's not 100%. There's still a forest fire, but they feel comfortable with people coming back to town.
Delowich says the town will still be on evacuation alert in case the situation changes. Meanwhile, anxious property owners are returning to Nopaming Provincial Park. They were forced to evacuate for a month due to the fires. Martin Enns just got back to the cottage he built on Booster Lake, and he was pleasantly surprised to see no damage to his home.
When I thought of the firefighters working so hard, in an area that, they really aren't invested in, not like us, I'm just blown away by how hard they worked.
and says it was emotional to see all the burned out areas in and around that park. As Marcy mentioned, staying with fire news, crews are trying to put out a fire in Point Douglas this morning in Winnipeg. Police say several trucks are on scene. Traffic is blocked in the 100 block of Euclid. We'll have more details on that as it develops. And as you've been hearing, people in the West End, in Winnipeg's West End, say they're worried their neighborhood is becoming a financial desert. The Royal Bank branch at Sargent and Sherbrooke is closing July 10th. The CBC's Cameron McLean has your details.
Ella Hudson does all of her banking at the RBC branch at the corner of Sargent and Sherbrooke. With no car, she faces a long walk to get to the next nearest bank.
I know a lot of people that are elder and that, and like myself, but I could get around on a bike, but that's besides the point.
Cheryl Martins has lived in the Spence neighborhood for decades. She says many people in the area don't have vehicles or internet and rely on in-person banking services to meet their financial needs.
Once you start losing your services, it's sort of like a death knell to a community, I think.
Jessica Guimond is another West End resident. She says people in the neighborhood may resort to alternatives to get cash.
If they're taking their checks, they'll go to the nearest pawn shops.
The only other full-service bank in the West End is the TD branch on Notre Dame. The closest RBC branch is in the Manitoba Hydro building downtown, about a 20-minute walk away. The spokesperson for RBC says the West End branch is merging with the one on Ellis Avenue near Polo Park. They say the decision was made after considering how best to serve their clients, as more people use other banking methods like telephone, online, and mobile. Cameron McLean, CBC News, Winnipeg.
And finally, turning to national news, rescue crews are resuming their search for survivors or bodies in the rubble of yesterday's rock slide in Banff National Park. At this point, there has been one confirmed fatality, with 3 people injured and taken to hospital. But it's not clear how many more people, if any, were swept away. Those who haven't been able to account for friends or loved ones are being told to contact Parks Canada. Video posted online appears to show a large shelf of stone crashing down the mountainside in a remote section of the park, again, Banff National Park. That's roughly 200 kilometers northwest of Calgary. And that's your CBC News from Winnipeg.
Scary stuff there, Matt. Thank you very much for the morning.
Thanks for the morning, Mars.
That is Matt Humphrey from our news department. So more people to thank here. Matt Humphrey, Alana Cole, Megan Ketchison with the news department this morning. Throughout this week, our associate producers, I want to give big thanks to those in our unit: Abby Adeyemi, Kalkadan Mulugeta, Sierra Sanders, Chidi Akuma, Marshall Hodgins, Dylan Longhurst, Jenna Badasso, Carmen Ponto, May McKillop, Chloe Friesen, Bruce Layden, and Sid Sundance Horshig. All of those producers work on all of the various programs here locally. Our CA reporters, our community reporter is Shanley Vidal, reporter Jim Agapito, hosts in unit Nadia Kidwai, Faith Fundell, and Marjorie Dowhouse. YouTube producer for the morning show, Brad Lillies and Travis Peterson in today. As well, Nellie Gonzalez is show's producer in current affairs unit overall. So big thanks to Nellie for her work. Producer Donna Carrero helping out this week. And Leif Larson is the senior producer of audio here at CBC Manitoba. All right, Sierra, last look at the drive here.
So as we've been hearing, there are fire crews dealing with the house fire at Euclid and Hallich there. So traffic is being blocked by those crews. So avoid the area and find an alternate route if you can.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And Abby?
The south and warming up to 28, and the north will be seeing highs of 23. And happy summer, everybody.
Yeah, enjoy the very first official day. Enjoy the weekend. Be safe. If you're heading back to a wildfire zone, I hope you find better news, good news, and just the fact that you're heading home is probably going to be good news. Flin Flon, of course, you have to wait till next week, but at least you got the word that it's coming. And thank you so much, everyone, for listening all week long. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is CBC. If you have any feedback for your public broadcaster, give us a call, 788-3205. Enjoy your weekend. Take care. And The Current is coming up next right here on 89.3 FM.